Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live from the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill on the H&H Chevrolet stage. I'm Ravi, Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me.
Behind the back, step back, cash and checks on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
I don't know what any of that means. What's going on, man?
I just had to get my my southpaw.
Got to get the fall through.
Baylor Shireman, and then maybe if I go with the right hand, I look a little bit like CC last night on the women's court.
Man, that was a spectacular ending.
Yeah, but it was on Peacock, so I only saw the ending.
It was, honestly, I feel bad because, unless I'm specifically like when Nebraska football played on Peacock, I'm specifically searching out the certain games, right? But unless I'm specifically searching out a game, if it's not on my regular television provider, I really struggle. Just it leaves my mind completely. And I don't know if it's like an ADD thing or ADHD thing where it's just like out of sight, out of mind, totally gone. But that's what happened with luckily, thank God for social media. I won't say that a lot, but it popped up on my feed. So I was able to catch the end of it, and people were like, hey, you got to go check out this game. It's going like it's a super good game. So I was able to catch the end of it. But I mean, highlight of the story, Caitlin Clark, kind of ridiculous.
What'd she end up with? 40?
She had 40, I think, on the button, and shot the game winner from the beak of the Hawkeye. And
she's so good.
I think barely got it off before the buzzer, but just cashed it for the win over Michigan State. Incredible. I mean, I didn't think we were going to start the show with Caitlin Clark and Iowa women's basketball.
Neither did I. I just kind of did a little basketball
you were doing
move
a little
over here. I started with Shireman, actually.
You did start Shireman with the lefty. He's got a little, he's got kind of a weird little, like, a lot of lefties have kind of a weird little, like, lefty, like, side flick deal. I don't know. It bothers me.
Not Shireman.
Shireman shooting it over here.
I don't know about that. I think it's more elbow in.
No, it's not bad, but it looks just lefty shots just always look a little bit off to me. Just
yeah, because they shoot with the wrong hand.
Yeah, they're shooting backwards, man.
What are they doing?
Which is weird because lefty pitchers don't look weird to me.
Right. Shireman would shoot 8 for 8 if he shot from the right side.
I mean, he'd never miss. I think he's just doing this to make it fair for everybody else.
He's just a nice guy.
We appreciate you joining us here on a Wednesday. This week is all goofed up a little bit because Monday we were off. I mean, we've been off for a while before yesterday, but I keep thinking in my head, this doesn't feel like a Wednesday. I don't know what day it feels like. It does not feel like a Wednesday.
It feels like a Tuesday because it's our second day.
It doesn't really even feel like a Tuesday to me. It almost felt like a Monday when I woke up this morning.
When I woke up this morning, it was so dark in my room. I don't think it's ever been at this dark this year.
Yeah.
Because it's only been 3 days.
Yeah.
Come on, Ravi. Come on, give me a little smile, acknowledge. No, okay.
I'm not going to do the this year dad jokes. I can't do it. I do my best.
I don't really know. But in terms of like this winter, how dark it is right now, has it been this dark? Like I said, I rolled out of bed and I'm like, I can't see anything.
You're like, is it still 2:00 in the morning? What's happening?
No.
I had to turn on the phone flashlight. I kind of had a little bit of a headache because, when you wake up this early and you think it's earlier than it actually is, it's like, man, I got that. I guess I'm just going to the bathroom and coming back to bed. No, actually, the alarm
I got to get
went off at 5. And it's just extremely dark outside. Is it just me, or do you see that too?
I don't know. It's dark. I don't know.
Shane, is it just me?
Don't put that crap on me.
Maybe it's a me thing.
Maybe it
was just oddly dark this morning. Okay.
Oddly dark.
Let me exit stage left.
Oddly dark times for the Carolina Panthers as well, for a lot of reasons, which we're going to talk to Cynthia Frelund at 8:00 from the NFL Network. She's terrific. We're going to talk to her about the NFL. There are some NFL stories I want to get into, though. Before we talk to her, we'll talk to Andy Kendeigh at 8:30 from KETV. Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. Some interesting visitors on the list for Nebraska football this weekend.
Oh, it's Kendeigh today? Not Suits?
I don't know. The schedule says Kendeigh.
I don't remember who it is.
I don't know. we haven't been on a Wednesday for a couple weeks now. So
whose week is it? Is it Kendeigh or Suits?
And then we'll wrap up the show at 9:30 and 9:45 with our very own Anna Bellinghausen. We'll talk some Creighton basketball. Maybe play a little trivia with Anna as well.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I've got it loaded up.
Okay.
You know what? There's one question I'm super excited for.
Yeah.
And I'm struggling. Do I give it to you? Like, you know how you can have like different levels of like, imagine it's Guitar Hero.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like the question right now is probably a medium.
Okay.
But if I took away the hint in the question, it'd probably make it expert. You skip hard.
Yeah, I think you don't give the hint until you need it. I think you give.
Well, for you get no hint.
Yeah, I know.
You get one Hail Mary.
This is terrible. I hate it.
Anna has a huge advantage on you today.
Yeah, this is terrible. Shane had a huge advantage last week, and I still beat him. So that's what's important.
What kind of questions that?
Yeah, Shane had more than an advantage. He started the race halfway down.
That's totally on me.
That is. Appreciate the accountability there, Shane.
Unlike Dave Tepper, who apparently claimed he was super accountable. And I think there was an article written about his accountability for his actions and how people like praised him for it. And now he's just like, I'm not talking to the media.
Yeah. So he's, first of all,
nobody can do that.
I'm not sure there's a worse franchise to be an NFL fan of right now than the Carolina Panthers.
Which is saying something.
It really is, because it's pretty bad to be a Bears fan, as you know. It's pretty bad to be a Vikings fan.
I wouldn't say bad to be a Viking. It's just hard this year.
Yeah, it's been a hard year. And I mean, they are not perpetually inept. They just tend to not cross. They can't cross the finish line, right? They can't get to the top of the mountain. So, it's a different kind of misery being a Minnesota Vikings fan. I mean, there's some miserable fandoms, right? The Jets come to mind, where it's like, hey, we've got all this hope. We've got Aaron Rodgers. Just kidding. You get him for 3 plays.
The Falcons are kind of in that boat since they made their Super Bowl run.
Is anyone a Falcons fan, though?
I think Brian Edwards is.
I've never met anyone that's like, yeah, granted, we live in Omaha.
Commanders, that's a tough one to be a
Commanders
part of.
is a tough hang for sure. It's probably a little better now that Snyder sold the team. Probably a little bright side, even though the football hasn't gotten better.
Oddly enough, like as bad as the Raiders were this year, Antonio Pierce kind of made it like.
Yeah, I don't hate
okay
it. I don't hate Antonio Pierce. I don't know that they're going to hire him, but because I think Jim Harbaugh's on the phone.
What about the Chargers?
Again, I feel like that's kind of like the Falcons, where does anyone care about the Chargers?
I feel like people should because of who they have on that team.
Yeah, I think
it's more than Justin Herbert. I think they have pieces on defense. I think they have some solid pieces on offense too with Eckler and Keenan Allen.
Yeah, there's sort of a don't forget about our guy Easton Stick here, Omaha's own.
Can't forget about ES.
But, I agree that there's some nice pieces on that team. And they've spent a lot of money to be good on that team. They just haven't. I don't remember any. I just don't think anybody cares about the Chargers. They're one of those. There's like a handful of franchises.
They're that forgotten team in LA.
Yeah,
they're that forgotten team in California.
Honestly, in the NFL, and they're sort of just an afterthought in the NFL.
When they were in San Diego, they were kind of an afterthought.
Yeah,
Phillip Rivers was phenomenal for that team. Phenomenal.
Phillip Rivers, Drew Brees was good when he was there. LaDainian Tomlinson was awesome. Antonio Gates was incredible. We had this discussion a couple of weeks ago when they made their Super Bowl run with a bunch of guys that you've never heard of, which is okay because you weren't born yet. But it was like nobody. It's just they're a total afterthought NFL franchise, and there's not a ton of those, but there are. I think the Cardinals are that way. I always totally forget about the Cardinals mattering at all, and they play in the division of the team that I root for. So it's kind of wild, but. I think it's the worst to be a Panthers fan right now because in a lot of these other franchises, think about some of the places that we've talked about, right? We talked about Chicago. Okay, well, you've got a number 1 pick coming up. Part of the reason it's so miserable to be a Carolina fan, right? You got a number 1 pick coming up.
The Bears should also have 5.
Yeah, they should. They'll have 2 top 5 picks, which at the very least is sort of exciting. Some people are still really like Justin Fields.
Very exciting.
DJ Moore's a really nice player. They've got some guys.
What a steal he was from the Panthers.
I know. That's the best part is not only do the Panthers not have their number 1 overall pick this year, they also gave up
anybody.
They gave up DJ Moore also.
Bryce Young, I feel so bad for that dude because he's going to struggle there for a long time, at least for the entirety of his rookie deal.
Yeah.
Because
they're not good enough.
And I don't know if they can get good enough.
I believe this to my very core. There are not very many guys that can transcend their situation at the quarterback spot. CJ Stroud apparently is one of those guys, even though I think DeMeco Ryans dramatically improved that situation. Bryce Young is not one of those guys. I didn't think there was any of those guys in the draft last year. So CJ Stroud has kind of surprised me in that sense. But Bryce Young is basically who I thought he was, just the situation around him is so much worse. But the reason we're talking about Carolina and Dave Tepper this morning is so I'm looking at stories on ESPN to see if anything catches my eye, see if there's anything I want to throw on the show today. And forgive me, I didn't watch the Panthers game this weekend because, God, why would I? But I'm going through headlines, and I read this headline about Dave Tepper being fined $300,000 for an incident during the Jaguars game. And I'm like, what on earth could he have done to get a $300,000 fine? Well, apparently he threw a drink.
Can you imagine if he threw a fan, like a literal fan at a fan?
Yeah, like a ceiling fan. He just like tore it out.
I was thinking more of like a box fan, but we can go with the ceiling fan.
I'm thinking he's in his suite, right? He's getting mad because they're losing 26-0 to the Jaguars. He grabs the fan out of the ceiling and just chucks it out the window. No,
talk about strength.
Those fans aren't as heavy as they look. So he throws a drink.
Rip it out of the ceiling. What are you talking about?
Those wires aren't that strong. It's fine.
Not all of us are bodybuilders.
He throws a drink at a bunch of Jaguars fans because he's got like an open air suite or whatever at this game. And I kind of went down this rabbit hole. Like I knew Dave Tepper was kind of, I'm being gracious here, kind of a nut job. And so I kind of went down this rabbit hole because I remembered hearing some weird stories about like things he keeps on his desk and whatever. And I ran into this story about him when in his pre-football days, about how he was working for some financial firm. I don't remember which one it was, but he was working for a financial firm and he thought he deserved a promotion, didn't get the promotion.
So he bought the Panthers?
No, I mean, it's worse than that. He ends up starting his own hedge fund, which good for you, made billions of dollars, whatever.
Yeah, he's the second richest owner in football.
But he was so mad about the promotion still. Like becoming a billionaire and proving people wrong wasn't enough. He went and bought the house of the guy that didn't give him the promotion, tore that house to the ground, and then built a new house on top of it. Like, that's some sort of sociopath level nonsense happening there. Like, for most people, becoming a billionaire in that industry and proving him wrong, enough, right? No, this guy has to go buy this dude's house and raise it, basically.
How about a multi-billionaire?
Yeah,
his
like
net worth is like 20 billion.
He's multiple times over a billionaire. Like, for most people, that's plenty.
Yeah, and this fine is like less than 1%.
Yeah, it's $300,000. Like it's me buying McDonald's in the morning. Like, not a big deal, right? And so
$300,000. Can you imagine saying not a big deal?
Right? Yeah, like that's. I mean, that's
what I could do with $300,000.
You could pay off your mortgage. Like
no big deal.
I could pay off more than just my mortgage.
You know, like
I could pay off for your mortgage.
Almost. So this dude is clearly unhinged, right? And so we run into this problem. We mentioned the Commanders earlier, right? You run into this problem when you are an NFL team run by a bad owner, where it becomes so hopeless because you have zero trust in the fact that this guy can make any good decisions, judging by the fact that he couldn't even make a decision good enough to just simply not destroy a guy's house just because he was mad at him still from something that happened years earlier. Like, this is a dude who
goes to therapy.
Yeah, go get therapy, man. Like, go get a counselor, first and foremost. Second, it was like he has fired 3 coaches in season. He's only owned the team since 2018. He's fired 3 coaches in season since 2019. This dude is totally unhinged. And if you're a Panthers fan, which I don't know that there's a lot of, I think they fall into the Cardinals, which honestly, I would kind of put the Jaguars in this category, which is why it's hilarious that a Jaguar fan is just living rent-free in this dude's head. But if you're a Panthers fan, what hope do you have at all for the future? Like, are you really just banking on, like, okay, maybe this 5'10", 134-pound Bryce Young is really gonna turn this thing around? I don't even know what you do at this point.
I feel so bad for him because
I feel bad for Bryce Young. I don't feel bad for the Panthers.
Like, the Panthers are not going to be good for the entirety of his rookie deal.
No, he's gonna have to go somewhere else. Yeah, he's gonna have to go somewhere else.
So you're just gonna get beat up and bruised for 4 years and be on a team that wins 2, maybe 3 games a season? I feel so bad for Bryce Young. And another reason why I feel so bad for him is the expectation that Tepper set when they drafted him.
Yeah, he's going to Super Bowls.
Yeah, bowls, plural. Like, what? In order to get to Super Bowls, you need more than just a quarterback. You need pieces around him to throw to, guys that can get open on a consistent basis.
Yeah.
Like Adam Thielen even struggled to get open this year. He had some good weeks, but he still struggled to get open. You have a running back crew of Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard who couldn't go anywhere because that line is so bad.
Brutal.
And then defensively, the Panthers can't stop anybody. How do you expect to get to Super Bowls with Bryce Young? And then also not have number 1 overall picks to use in upcoming drafts. It's because you threw everything away just to get Bryce Young. I know sometimes you have to do, like, you have to
go all in.
Not just go all in, but you have to kind of like reach even further than the all-in pool to get the guy that you want when you're jumping in the draft as high as they did. But still, let's sit back and drink some humble juice for a moment.
I don't know that Dave Tepper's
and I don't know if he can
with the humble juice
because of his personality.
Yeah.
And I don't know what was in the cup. Maybe he's a recovering alcoholic and it's water. But if I had to guess, he's probably like,
it seems unlikely.
He's probably like a gin and tonic guy. Like, who likes gin and tonics anyway? But that's probably Dave Tepper's drink of choice. Maybe he's a Dirty Shirley.
I don't know. So I was actually thinking about that, right? Because
he's a Dirty Shirley guy,
my first thought is, okay,
I really got to be careful on what I say about that. So
if you're throwing a cup at a fan, I'm assuming you're drunk.
Maybe.
At least tipsy.
Depends on the insult.
I mean, maybe this is just how he is sober. That's fair.
Why didn't he just blow his nose with like $100 bill and then toss that at the fan?
Here you go, bud.
That would have been sick.
That's literally. I mean, he could have got sick. No, that seems like Dave Tepper.
It is that time of year.
It does seem like Dave Tepper behavior to do something that petty. But I was you think how Creighton fans get all it's the wine and cheese crowd, and they're drinking their Chardonnay at the basketball games
pinky
or
up.
whatever. Well, you got to. I mean, how are you supposed to drink without the pinky up? Was it like champagne? Was he just have a little champagne flute?
He just drinks champagne at
the entire game.
2:00.
Hey, listen, it's always a good time.
I only know. Here's what you do with champagne, Ravi. You pop champagne when you're celebrating something. I don't think there's anything for him to celebrate.
No, it's true. That's fair. He doesnn't have a lot to celebrate. I actually kind of like gin and tonic sometimes, like every once in a while.
My dad likes gin and tonics too. They are so gross.
Well, you have to get the right gin, because
here we go. Now it's up to the gin.
It's flickering.
It is just like
I'm sure Dave Tepper drinks some very nice gin.
Right, but there's different kind of varieties of gin that some of them taste like pine trees, and those are not good. They taste.
I think it's the tonic for me. I don't know how
really
much it's the gin.
Oh, okay.
I don't like tonic.
Not a big tonic guy. It's just basically like sugar water.
Yeah, not for me. I need the bubbles, man. I need something.
I like some bubbles. That's why I like champagne. Get those bubbles in there. You know what I mean?
Again, when you celebrate something, and maybe there's something Husker fans can celebrate out of this, because if Matt Rule wasn't fired by Mr. Dave Tepper,
the one and only,
and maybe we can pinpoint ownership as an issue in Carolina and not just coaching after seeing Frank Reich kind of fall apart there. And who was the third? Who am I missing?
Who
was in between? Come on.
Who am I missing?
This wasn't, there was the interim between Rule and Reich. He's the guy that is he's the 49ers defensive coordinator now.
It's a really good question.
What is his name? I mean, so didn't he fire Ron Rivera also, or was that before?
That was before.
Okay.
That was before Rule.
Okay, yeah.
That was BR.
That's right. Steve Wilkes was the interim last year. He's the guy that's now the 49ers defensive coordinator. So it was Matt Rule, Steve Wilkes, Frank Reich. Now Chris Tabor is your interim.
Former Bears coach, by the way.
Yeah, so
not head coach.
So Tepper did fire Rivera also.
Oh, he did?
Yes, because he got fired in 2019.
Oh, that would have made sense because he hired Rule.
Yes, so he was the guy that would have made sense. So those are the three that got fired in season were Rivera, Matt Rule, and Frank Reich, all fired in season since 2019. That's only been 4 years.
Mm-hmm. And here's what I was going to say, Ravi.
Yes.
Matt Rule, Dave Tepper, maybe Satan in this instance. Matt Rule, the saint, the martyr, thankfully took one for the team and is here to lead Nebraska to the promised land, or at least back to the promised land.
Certainly gives a different perspective on his experience in Carolina.
Now we know
absolute gold.
His personality, as we talk about Tepper's personality, Rule's personality is not meant to be a head coach because he cares too much about players and doesn't want to fire
in the NFL. Yeah, in the NFL.
He doesn't want to fire or kick guys off his team that are just because, hey, somebody else tells you to do it.
Yeah, and I'll give Rule credit here. And this is, bringing it around to Nebraska football is I think you actually have to give Rule a ton of credit for taking accountability for his part in that situation where he said hey, I compromised some things that I believed I was about to do what I thought I had to do that job right the way that it needed to be done. And he's like, and I shouldn't have done that. Right. So he took accountability, something that, our guy, Dave Tepper, maybe not the best at, but the fact that he hasn't said a single ill word about Tepper when he appears to be just this full-fledged wacko.
When have you heard him say a bad word about anybody?
That's fair. I mean, the closest is apparently when Dion's kids thought he was talking trash about Dion.
But he didn't even say anything bad about that. He was just explained what
he was just
happened.
Hey, I don't really want to build out of the portal. I want to coach the kids I have here and build through high school recruiting. He didn't even say anything about Dion.
Okay, I was thinking about the other instance when he was on the logo. You remember when Shadir
came
out
the
logo and Rule jump back and just explain. So he's more of just an explainer. He's never somebody that calls somebody out.
I haven't heard him say a cross word really about anybody, and that's not to say that he doesn't, but the fact that he worked for this dude who is seemingly just totally nuts and hasn't had a bad thing to say about him, the man has to be a saint. Either that or he's got the patience of a nun.
And
I don't know.
I don't know what coach you can bring into Carolina to turn this thing around, because until you have a team that's built around Bryce Young, you might as well just keep Tabor as the interim for 3 years.
And until you have a owner that actually knows what he's doing and isn't crazy, it's going to be tough. Look at how the Commanders went under Daniel Snyder. Coming up next, we've got more Hurrdat Sports Radio. Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. I'm Ravi, Lulla, Andrew Rogers here with me. We're live from the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill on the H&H Chevrolet stage here on a Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
Still Wednesday, just double-checked.
January 3rd.
Didn't necessarily think we'd talk about Dave Tepper for as long as we did, but I'm fascinated by weird rich people behavior. Because sometimes it seems like they live in a totally different world. Well,
they do. They have more money than us and can live in a different world.
Fair.
Because they have all the luxuries of
life. That's fair. And B, I'm fascinated by bad owner behavior because I think I genuinely believe it's almost impossible to have a long-term successful franchise without at least a competent owner or an owner that stays the bleep away from the stuff he's not supposed to deal with, right? I think a big reason the Cowboys have struggled and they're better, or they're good right now, but haven't been able to win a Super Bowl since 95 or 96 Super Bowl, 95 season, is because Jerry Jones can't keep his hands out of the pie. Right? What's up?
Isn't some of this part of the problem some of the rivalry between the owners themselves? I mean, there would be like Al Davis used to back in the 80s. He would draft people just so like Kansas City couldn't draft them. And it was just part of the rivalry. He was just doing that sort of stuff just because he didn't want the other owner or the other team to, to have that certain person. I mean, they were just doing it because of that.
Yeah, I don't know if rivalry is the right word, but ego. I think ego has a huge factor because, okay, so especially guys that are buying teams now. You see this in the NBA all the time because it's newer owners in the NBA. Most of the owners have flipped within the last 20-ish years, it seems like. Whereas the NFL, you've still got like the Rooneys, I think, still own the Steelers, and the Maras still own the Giants. Like, these are founding families.
Yeah, the Hallises still own the Bears.
The Bears. You've got the Davises that have owned the Raiders forever. Like, you've got Jerry Jones has owned the Cowboys for 40 years or however long it's been at this point. Like, you've got these really old owners that some of them made their money from the franchise, and some of them have just been part of the franchise for so long. Whereas in basketball, all of these guys made their billions doing something else. Mm-hmm. And then they came and bought a basketball team. It was their big shiny toy that they bought. Right. And you're starting to see that, like, that's Dave Tepper, right? Or that's, was it Josh Harris, I think, is the guy that bought the Commanders.
Yes.
You've got, like, those are the new age type of owners. So their egos are enormous because they, and to a certain degree, rightfully so, because they made their money doing something else. They've been super successful already. Right. And so they're like, well, why wouldn't I be successful in this? I'm successful at everything. That's how their minds work. And so I do think there is a certain level of ego where it's like, well, like, I couldn't possibly be the problem here. Look how successful I've been at everything else I've done. It's like, well, okay, yeah, maybe that's true. Maybe you just had one really good idea at the right place at the right time. And now you're out of your league, right? You're out of your depth because you haven't been evaluating football since you were 14 years old. And I think that's where you run into a lot of these problems is ego, where Dave Tepper's ego is seemingly out of control.
Well, when you make that type of money too, that's where you develop the ego.
Absolutely, yeah.
And at some point, you have to have an ego to get that amount of money.
For sure.
So the ego probably started a lot sooner than today.
And it's weird to say, like, I think a lot of times the ego is well earned in their respective area, but they can't compartmentalize that from to football.
Because it becomes a competition.
Yeah.
Right. Like, if you're not the best, you want to be the best, or you want to strive to be better than X person. Plus, all of these guys know each other.
Yes.
They've been in rooms with each other. They know who they like. They know who they dislike. They don't have to be friends with one another.
And a lot of them aren't. I mean,
and they aren't because they're so competitive in their own space. Plus, think about this for a moment. When you go into one of those meeting rooms, I'm Dave Tepper, you're Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones talking about Jerry Jones, right? Yeah. You're talking about yourself.
Always.
Dave Tepper is going to get annoyed by that and try to one-up Jerry Jones.
By talking about Dave Tepper.
They're so busy talking about themselves versus, something else in life. And that's why those circles are so small.
Yeah.
Right?
Nobody wants to spend time with those people.
No one wants to sit down and not address the elephant in the room or try to find something that you can both relate on, because you guys are too busy being like, hey, I made $3 billion yesterday. What did you make?
Right.
Oh, I only made 2. Oh, whoa.
And
this, then the other.
And a lot of that's fine, but maybe just keep it in the ownership group, not when you're sitting in the press box and you're throwing your gin and tonic on a.
I thought you were going to say gin and juice like Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, gin and juice.
His purple drink.
Keep the purple drink in the press box.
Dave Tepper literally spilled the tea.
He did. Oh man,
bringing it all the way back around.
No cap.
No, that's why a guy like Mark Cuban is so unusual and seemingly likable, because he actually says interesting things sometimes.
I also think he's likable too for his role on Shark Tank.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. But even before that, I remember when he bought the Mavs and he seemed like a regular guy.
$285 million.
And I get he wasn't a regular guy because he was still filthy rich already at that point. But he acted like a fan, kind of like Steve Ballmer does now, except for like 30% less crazy. Steve Ballmer's like out there. But he acted like a normal person.
Yeah, he was first row.
Yeah, he sat in the stands instead of in a box. He was cheering. He's wearing T-shirts and jeans and Mavs gear and whatever. He'd go out and shoot on the floor at halftime. Like, he seemed like a normal, relatable dude. Most of these people are so far, like I said, they live in a different world, right? Because they do live in a different world. They're so unrelatable. But the point with these franchises is, though, I don't know how many franchises, like Robert Kraft is a really good example, right? I'm not saying he's a good dude. I have no idea. He's, been in the news for some things, but he does pretty much the best job an owner can do, in the sense that unless something really big comes off, he takes his hands off the wheel. That's the best thing an owner can do. If they're not super well versed in what they're doing, which most of them aren't, because again, they made their money doing something else. They just take their hands off the wheel and say, hey, the people that I pay to do their job, this isn't just a sports thing, right? Really successful people that own businesses. Warren Buffett's a good example of this. He tries to buy businesses. This is like his model, right? He tries to buy businesses that already work, and then he just leaves everybody alone. Because if it's already working and already making money and was good enough for him,
why change it?
Yeah, why would you bother that, right? If Bill Belichick is the greatest coach of all time and had at least until a few years ago, but had an incredible run, was doing great as the GM and the coach, why would you mess with that? And I think it's so hard for guys that have that much, that are so used to having that much control over things, to just all of a sudden take their hands off the wheel. And so that's why, like,
Gary Underwood, Jesus, take the wheel.
Yeah, just, Bill Belichick, take the wheel. Like, that's he was the savior in New England for a long time, right?
Was he, or was it Tom Brady?
Well, that's a fair question.
Now it's a different argument.
But now, never mind. I was going to make a Jesus wine joke. Never mind. It's fine. I was going to bring it all the way back around to Dave Tepper drinking champagne in the suite. But
why don't you just bring it around to, okay, he brought up Tom Brady. Oh, didn't Jim Harbaugh say J.J. McCarthy was the best Michigan quarterback of all time?
I mean,
and then people got mad about that on social media.
I didn't even think twice about it.
Well, it's because it's true.
Yeah,
Tom Brady at Michigan wasn't what J.J. McCarthy is at Michigan. You got to take the NFL piece out of it.
Yeah, Tom Brady was, let's be frank, a part-time starter at Michigan. And part of it was a weird thing with Drew Henson and whatever, but he was a part-time starter at Michigan. He got benched for a guy that ended up playing for the Yankees. Like, this is it's not an argument.
He was drafted in the 6th round.
Yeah.
Right?
199.
I believe, yeah, he was the 199th pick. J.J. McCarthy's numbers.
Going to go in the first round.
Is probably first-round material. And on top of that, Michigan is in the national championship game, partly because of one J.J. McCarthy.
You heard it here first. Andrew Rogers thinks Tom Brady's trash. That's what I heard.
Yep.
Coming up
exactly
next,
what I said.
As we enjoyed the playoff games over the weekend, or on Monday, I guess. I don't know what day it is. We're getting into the last week of the NFL regular season. It's starting to bum me out a little bit. I see the end of football at the end of the road. I feel like we got to talk about it. Coming up next on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Wrapping up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me.
What up?
We're on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, as well as Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Make sure you hop in the YouTube comments and start chatting with us over there. Or you can give us a call on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline, 888-638-4876. That's where we'll talk to all of our guests today, including Cynthia Frelund coming up at 8 o'clock from the NFL Network. But, I was thinking about, we're talking about NFL earlier. This is the final week of the regular season coming up. We watched the college football playoff on Monday. Means there's only one college football game left this year at the FBS level. At least that matters. I don't know. They used to sprinkle like random bowl games in. Are there those this year? I didn't even look.
In terms of this week?
Yeah, just like
I'm thinking no.
Okay, because they used to sprinkle random bowl games.
I don't know when that stopped, but
I'm gonna look real quick just to make sure.
It's definitely not this year.
Yeah,
because remember in the bowl schedule, it was New Year's 6 bowl games, and then it was just the college football semifinal, and then the championship.
They must have stopped that a couple years ago. Maybe they stopped it when they started doing when
they transitioned from BCS to playoff.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't know where the time goes. I'm getting very old.
Well, you know what? The time goes fast, and football season just is over in the blink of an eye.
And that's where I wanted to go, because I start. You know how some people get the Sunday Scaries, where have you ever heard of that?
Is that like, hey, I'm going back to work?
Yeah. So
okay. So yes,
mid Sunday afternoon, people start getting a little down. They start getting a little depressed because they're like, oh man, my weekend's over. I got to head back to work on Monday. Not us, because we have a fun job, but
and I start work Sunday night.
I was gonna say, yeah, and we're sort of like always working because we have to watch games and stuff. But so I'm kind of starting to get my football version of the Sunday Scaries a little bit here, because we're at a place where, like we said, only one more college football game left. We're ticking down to the end. I mean, we've got basically a month left of the NFL, including the playoffs here. And it kind of got my head spinning a little bit about what time of year, what time on the sports calendar bums you out the most. Because it's really easy to say, I know you're a big baseball fan, so you probably wouldn't say this, but it's kind of really easy to say, like late July, early August, where there's just not that much going on. You have baseball, but that's about it. You're still another month and a half away from football starting. And there's not much going on, right? But I actually sort of start getting excited around that time because football's on the horizon. We're about to be like 8 months away from football happening again. And that really bums me out. And we don't even have what used to kind of get me through some of that time period was back when there was no early signing period. So January, February would get really exciting because you had all of the recruiting stuff happening like we had last month. Like imagine the Dylan Raiola stuff happening right after the national championship game kind of sustained you over for another month or so. We don't have that anymore. So we'll get the NFL through February. Then you've got March Madness. So I'm good there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think for me, it's as soon as March Madness is over, I get to be a little bummed out because I like baseball. I'm not as into baseball as I used to be. Opening day used to be one of my favorite days of the year. But as soon as the Final Four is over, I start to get a little bit of my sports Sunday Scaries.
And that happens. For me in general, I'd probably say football season is when that's over, it's the saddest time on the sports calendar because one, I'm a fantasy football player, so which is over now. Fantasy is over, but I kind of like to bridge my addiction to fantasy football. I play fantasy baseball, and that's just too much of an investment, too much of a commitment,
so much time.
It's very time consuming. Although I play it more now because it keeps me up to date with the current players in Major League Baseball. But it's just, it's rough sometimes. But the reason I say the end of football in general and not March Madness, because, and I love college basketball. I love the tournament. Like that's probably my favorite time of year, to be quite honest. But I'm so antsy for the draft, like the NFL draft in April.
Yeah.
And when your team has a top pick on top of it, like it really helps to have like, okay, March Madness is over. Now I have the draft to look forward to in 4 weeks?
Yeah, yeah.
And so once that hits, then it's like, okay, the time is still very exciting. So right now, even though football season is coming to a close in February, I still have the draft to look forward to. So football season's not technically over for me yet.
Yeah.
And then you have the spring game up here in Nebraska, and you'll get to see Dylan Raiola. So, like, that's another reason to kind of stay excited for football through April. But I would actually probably pinpoint for me, just in general, like when my teams are in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I'll go with the Cardinals and Blues for the sake of the example, because that's the hometown teams. When they get eliminated from the playoffs, that is like when I get the most sad.
Yeah.
Because the season is still going.
But without you.
But without me.
It's like the FOMO.
I remember being up here in Omaha a couple of years ago. Maybe it was 3 now. The Cardinals were playing the Dodgers, and Chris Taylor hit a walk-off home run in the 10th. The Cardinals did not deserve to win that game at all. They looked horrible. But they went all the way down to the wire.
Yeah.
With a Dodgers team that was 10 times better than they were. And I had to watch their season come to an end. And I remember just sitting in my apartment, just like,
yeah.
Like, when you're like, it's kind of like that guy that was walking on the sidewalk yesterday. He had his like hood up. He was kind of like slouched over and he was walking slow. Like, when you're like kicking like rocks on the ground,
standing behind a bush for a suspicious.
What is it from Arrested Development? It's like young Michael when he has like his head down and he's like walking on like the dirt of like where they're building houses. Like, that's kind of how I feel when my team's eliminated from the playoffs. That's the worst time of year because it's just over. Right, you had all that excitement, added excitement because you were playing for something, and then boom, season over. If they were to win, like when the Blues won the Stanley Cup in 19, oh my gosh, it's incredible. Like you're riding that high until next season, which happens to be in like 2 months because after the hockey season's over, it's like 2 months later you're playing again. But like those are like the greatest moments. But when your team just gets booted, knocked out, like when Nebraska wasn't able to make a bowl game this
when they
season,
lost to Iowa, that Saturday was a bummer.
Like, think about just like how down, like you were just hanging your head. Like, yes, you probably were like the negative Nancy's who I told you not to be yesterday. You have to be optimistic Oscars. The negative Nancy's were like, oh, I saw it coming.
Yeah.
This is exactly what Nebraska football is. Yeah. Like, that's probably how you reacted in the moment, but you're down because you were so close. You were 5-3 for the longest time. And then boom, you were hit with the 5-7 record.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I think I was a little early on mine. I think it's probably May because you're right. I love the draft. I love the combine. I love the spring game. So all that's in April. The combine might be in the combine's before that's in like February or late February, early March. But so yeah, I can get through April. May is when it starts to get a little dicey. There's not a ton going on in May. Usually by that point, I've realized the Red Sox aren't going to be very good again this year. So May is a little bit rough. June, we get to the College World Series, which I enjoy. So you kind of start picking up momentum there. May's kind of a dead period for me.
Yeah, you know what else sucks?
What's
the
that?
All-Star break.
Yeah.
That is horrible for sports.
Really nothing.
There is nothing going on during the All-Star break. Absolutely nothing. I remember having to check the ESPN app and looking for soccer games to watch because you go to the MLB schedule and it's like, hey, like their last game, let's just say it's Saturday or Sunday, whatever. And then they play the All-Star game on what, like Tuesday or Wednesday?
Tuesday, I think.
And then boom, they don't play again until Friday. And so those 2 games or those 2 days off are the longest 2 days of my sports life.
Yeah.
The longest.
You got to get out there.
Those are some sad times, man.
You got to get out there, maybe spend some time with your dog, with your family.
Yep. I need to get down to like my family's lake house.
Brad. Yeah.
Hit Brad's point here.
Brad says arena football coming back this year starting in May. That'll help me get through the summer. So
I brought that up yesterday.
Yeah, we talked about this yesterday. I actually really enjoy arena football. I think it's a fun kind of distraction. I think it's different enough from your typical, because here's part of the problem.
Unless you're Kurt Warner, not me.
We had this discussion a little bit yesterday, really briefly, about a spring football league and if it worked or not. And we both just said no. And I think it's because it's too similar to the NFL, but it's just not as good.
Yeah, and it's the not as good part.
But arena's not as good, but it's different enough that it feels like I'm watching something else.
But I'd rather watch the XFL than arena football.
Really?
Yeah, and I like the XFL too because they do it differently. Like, as much as it's similar, the way that it's broadcasted is so much different than the NFL. I love how microphones are just in the players' faces all the time, and you get their passionate reactions and not the coach speak reaction. Those moments, like, those are can't miss moments.
See, I kind of like arena football because it's different enough from the NFL that I don't feel like I'm just watching a watered down version of the same thing. It feels like I'm watching a different sport to me. And so it kind of, I enjoy probably the arena league and, the Omaha Beef and stuff like that a little bit more than I would say the XFL, USFL, but I do love Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. So maybe we'll give it a try.
Hey, I'm going to get you some Battlehawks gear.
All right, let's do it.
And I'm going to adopt you into our fan base.
Well,
Caw.
You know whose fan base you need to be adopted into is the Omaha Supernovas. It is pro time in basketball. So if you're getting some of these Sundays,
volleyball.
Sorry, basketball on the brain. If you're getting some of these Sunday scaries because football's over, the Omaha Supernovas start the very first Pro Volleyball Federation match on January 24th against the Atlanta Vibe at the CHI Health Center. First service at 7 p.m. Go to supernovas.com. You can get season tickets. You can get single match tickets. Witness world-class talent on the Supernovas as, again, first ever Pro Volleyball Federation match. They've got national champions, All-Americans, Olympians. Join the volleyball movement sweeping across the country and see your Major League Volleyball team, the Omaha Supernovas. Go to supernovas.com for more info or for tickets. Cynthia Frelund coming up next. Welcome back. Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. I'm Ravi Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me. Joining us now on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline is Cynthia Frelund of the NFL Network. Cynthia, how are you this morning?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
Oh, we are doing just fine here in a chilly Omaha, Nebraska, trying to stay warm here. Wanted to start off asking, because I'm a little selfish here. I'm a big 49ers fan. How much has, I know you're big into the numbers and the data analytics of the NFL. How close has the eye test been to what the numbers are telling you on a team like the 49ers that until at least Christmas Day were seen to be head and shoulders above the rest of the league? Now it seems like it's them and the Ravens.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is even watching back that Ravens game, you're seeing some of the things that we all know cause problems, right? Like injuries or someone in and out of the lineup, etc. And look, like the score, while it was very impressive, I still think, like, if I'm a Niners fan, I'm not very worried because, well, okay, I'm a little worried because it's never good. It never feels good to see that, but I'm not super worried because sometimes, the score kind of gets away from you after a while, and some of those become garbage minutes at the end where it's kind of not, it's not really relevant to what they're able to do. There's a lot of good things to take away from the Niners. I don't think you're going to see a game with that many turnovers. I mean, it is very rare in many ways to have a Kyle Shanahan offense have that many turnovers. And also, if you go back and watch them, a lot of them are like bounce off the hand of someone else and ping-ponged into the defender's hand. Like it wasn't a type of turnover that you're like, wow, no, he's just throwing that to the other team.
Cynthia, I'll make a connection to the 49ers. I am not a diehard 49ers fan, as Ravi is, but because if I had it my way, I think Christian McCaffrey should win the MVP. That's why I'm going to ask this question. Overreaction or reality, Lamar Jackson has locked up the MVP?
Well, it's only a reality because of the formula that we've been using to create the MVP for a really long time, right? Since Adrian Peterson. Basically that a quarterback of a really strong team, especially a team that looks really strong right around now, which is when the voting ends, right, becomes the one that gets the MVP. It just is. And if you have a performance like that on a national, stage at this late in the game, then you're absolutely doing it. The problem is timing is everything, because there have been a bunch of 49ers games, like had that Niners-Cowboys game happened right now, or Eagles or whatever, like that would have made things different as well. And I'm with you. I think Christian McCaffrey should at least be very high in the conversation. I was a little surprised when it was Brock Purdy.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that I don't think he's great, but I just think in terms of value on that team, Christian McCaffrey is the straw that stirs the drink.
We're talking with Cynthia Frelund of the NFL Network. Cynthia, when you're looking at, since we're talking about the Ravens a little bit here, where are some of the areas that you think they are the most impressive? Obviously, Lamar Jackson gets all the headlines there, but what do some of the numbers tell you where they excel in ways that maybe people aren't noticing?
Yeah, I mean, we don't always talk about like coverage linebackers as well, and everyone knows how great their linebackers are, but it's the combination of what they've been able to do with it's kind of like the whole spine of the defense, right? Like Geno Stone is such a great story because we all kind of were like, well, we didn't know what to expect from him, and a lot of other teams did not think he was great, right? That's how he ended up where he did. And for him to be able to work so well with a guy like Kyle Hamilton, who he's not just a safety, he's like a versatile. I don't know what to call him, right? Like a defensive backish safety nickel. He's like a monster, right? So for that to be able to happen, it's really the spine of the defense that is what I think is so impressive. Because, I mean, if we're very honest, we've seen stretches where Marlon Humphrey, who's a great corner, but he's been in and out of the lineup. He's been battling an injury all season long. So when you have safeties like that and you have linebackers that play in coverage so well, you really have a formula for success. And I think that to me, that defense and what Mike McDonald's been able to do, that's why that guy's name is going to be floating all over the place for any and all open coaching jobs, even ones where you'd think an offensive head coach would be the right solution.
Cynthia, just picture this for a moment. Joe Flacco against the Ravens in the playoffs. Do you think the football gods give us what we want and make it happen?
If there is a football god, he better make that happen because I want nothing more than that. I would love to see that. Flacco to me is like, because I'm about the same age as him, I think it's so funny. Like, you know, after that Jets game, he's on the field, he's like, this guy, like that is me at every party, every time I go home on Sunday. Like, he's the most relatable person in all of football right now for me. And him like cursing and those, like, he's cool. I never thought so, but he's cool.
Yeah, it seems like he's kind of loosened up a little bit after he saw his.
Yeah, how do you not root for that guy?
I mean, I
don't know.
He seemed always kind of. I mean, I'll say it. He seemed like one of the most boring guys in the world.
Yes.
When he was with like the Ravens, and then I don't know if he like saw his football life flash before his eyes, and all of a sudden he goes, "Well, I guess I'm going to enjoy it on what could be his last run." But like, it's really hard not to root for the Browns and Joe Flacco.
I mean, that game with him and Amari Cooper was so fun to watch for so many reasons. But for goodness sake, like, you're watching Joe Flacco like sling it, like, you know, it was insane. It was so funny. And then I don't know, like, he takes a snap on the sideline, or at least it looks like. I mean, everything is so funny. Like, it's just so relatable. Like, he must have figured out, like, hey, F it, I'm just gonna have fun now. You know.
Cynthia, answer this for me. Because as I think about the Browns, and all season long, they've had one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the NFL. But how did they find Joe Flacco before somebody else? Like, does that question make sense? Like, how did the Jets miss on a guy like, or taking a flyer on a guy like Joe Flacco, or maybe another team in the NFL that needed a quarterback earlier than the Browns did?
Well, part of the reason that Joe Flacco works so well is the system for the Browns is really set up to tailored to his skill set. And also, like, despite their O-line having a lot of injuries, like, they're a well-coached O-line, meaning you're not seeing any of those things where all these stunts and chips that are happening throughout the league and that are really causing a lot of O-line problems. Watch the Panthers O-line. They're just confused all the time. That's not happening even with their backup tackle, even with their backup, you know, people playing in not in their normal position. So that helps give him just an extra amount of time. The way they run the routes, the way that the whole thing is constructed, even without Nick Chubb, who in my estimation is, you know, you have to at least put him up there with Christian McCaffrey as one of the most important running backs in the league. Like, they're doing a really nice job of creating a simple but complex enough offense, and it really fits his skill set. And the Jets, I memean, obviously they know Joe Flacco well. He's on their roster, and it wouldn't have looked the same there because that O-line is not. It's a totally different. Like, the if-then statements for what the quarterback needs to do are very different for the Jets than they are for what the Browns like to do.
Cynthia, you mentioned the Panthers there briefly, and we were talking about this earlier. In your opinion, is there a worse franchise to be a fan of when you take into account kind of ownership, what's been going on the last few years? Like, that's got to be one of the more hopeless franchises at this point.
I
mean, let's be clear. I am a Lions fan, and I have been my whole life. So
don't worry. I've got a question for you about the Lions.
You're living
next.
good then right now. You're feeling good.
Yeah, but we've had some dark times. I mean, we've had some really dark times. I think, look, the only good news, if I'm a Panthers fan, and I'm speaking very frankly here, my owner will throw money at this franchise. He just got a $300,000 fine, and he's kind of like, whatever, I accepted. I was wrong. Like, they will. He doesn't like losing. I can tell you that much. I went to business school, and when we were doing our business school interviews, many people interviewed with him, and they're like, this man, he will not lose. There's a reason that he's such a good head coach manager. Like, they'll figure it out. I mean, it's not great right now, but I think they'll figure it out.
Cynthia, let's talk about your Lions for a moment. Let's bounce back to that Cowboys-Lions ending because it had giant playoff implications for Detroit, and frankly, they really could have been up for the 1 seed in Week 18. But here's my thing: like, let's just think about this reasonably. Decker's only job is to come onto the field and report in that moment for that 2-point conversion play. Why would he walk up to Brad Allen and then just not report? Like, should head referees have to take the podium afterwards? Is something I really wonder. It's something I really wonder.
I mean, all I know is turning the page. Like, I have to say, and I wasn't the biggest Dan Campbell supporter when he first became the coach. I thought, I was like, what is going on here? Like, is this going to work out? And I was totally wrong. And I really 100% was confirmed in my wrongness after Dan Campbell took the podium after the game, didn't throw anyone under the bus, contained his emotions. Like, I don't know if many of us would be able to in that moment with that level of frustration. And the fact that it felt like when it feels like someone's lying to you, it just makes you even more, at least me, it makes me even more mad. So, it's like, don't gaslight me here, buddy. Like when he stood at the podium, and he was like, I explained, like, that was a man right there. And I'm confirmed in my wrongness. I had been confirmed in it for a while. I'd been like 99% for a while. Now it was like 110% absolutely sure that my initial estimation was wrong. I mean, there was a big rebuild. So I gotta give a lot of credit to Brad Holmes too, the general manager. But, Dan Campbell's he's a great man. Like, I have so much respect for him.
Cynthia, I was kind of on the same page as you on Dan Campbell when he got hired. He seemed like a guy that I thought would wash out of the NFL and end up being a really good college head coach. He kind of has more of that sort of like rah college style that tends to work almost like, like an early Pete Carroll the first time around when he was an NFL head coach. And like, I'm kind of shocked that this has worked in Detroit.
I mean, the thing that you're seeing now, and maybe Antonio Pierce is another great example of it. It's like, people don't ever question when your passion is so palpable that it oozes out of him. There's no moment where you don't think Dan Campbell is like completely invested in football. He loves it. He drinks 18 coffees so that he's awake enough to enjoy it. Like, all these crazy, like, I didn't love the crazy comments at first. I was like, ugh, we're going to be distracted. Like, this is a team that has recently been 0-16, right? So, like, I don't need kneecap biting, all that stuff. But the truth is it's just, that's who he authentically is. Yeah. That's not, and Pete is too, but life's all about timing. And I guess that timing worked for this team in this moment in a cultural rebuild where they had a bunch of weird feelings and, things were bad, and you rebuild a culture with someone who cares. I mean, Antonio Pierce can be another example of that potentially as well.
Cynthia, let's talk about an NFC North foe of the Lions and the Bears. From a team standpoint, I don't think the Bears should move on from Fields because I don't actually think their number 1 overall pick bad. How do you predict this Bears offseason will go in Chicago?
Well, Ryan Poles is my college friend, so let me start by saying that. And if I were Ryan Poles, or if I were advising him, I would tell him that no matter what, I am so up in the air. I would call Justin Fields and say, hey, I'm going to present like I'm going to take Caleb Williams. I'm going to present like that because I want to trade, and I need to trade like I want 6 number 1 picks. Okay, that's a little egregious, but you know what I'm saying. So I would call Justin Fields, give him the heads up, and be like, I'm going to go to every USC, like the pro day. I'm going to go interview him first. I'm going to stand in line and look like I'm banging the drum for him because I would like this franchise. They're not they shouldn't move on from Justin Fields, in my opinion. I don't think they have the infrastructure there in place to be able to have any quarterback succeed. So in my opinion, I think what they should do is tell everyone and the brother that we're going quarterback, and then get a bunch of first-round picks and take all of the good O-linemen that are coming out.
I love it.
And one of those great wide receivers, because the truth is they need a better O-line. They need their defense is good. Defense isn't the problem, right? Montez Sweat was a great deal that they got. They just need a much better O-line and one more pass catcher. Maybe a running back too, but you can get those late. But like, get one of those. I like the Washington receiver even better than Marvin Harrison Jr. Anyways, but that's another talk for another day. But I would lie. If I was Ryan Poles, I would lie. I would lie my face off. I would have a Caleb Williams like license plate.
We're talking with Cynthia Frelund from the NFL Network. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly. So your opposition or your decision to not take a quarterback has more to do with the Bears getting everything right around the quarterback spot rather than it is you're all in on Justin Fields. Am I understanding you correctly?
I would say I'm 75% in on Justin Fields.
Okay.
My questions about Justin Fields really are questions that can't be answered by his skill set. He's had a lot of different coordinators, tried to run a bunch of different offenses. And like, for example, Luke Getsy this year, for the first 8 games, he had no designed quarterback runs for Justin Fields. What are you doing? Like, why? That was working for every other team, and you've got a guy who's a great. So it's really not about Justin himself. It's more about, okay, let's actually give this person all of the tools around you that you can succeed with, because we know he's got a great arm, DJ Moore. We know he's got great opportunity to use his legs, see what happens when he does use designed runs. And let's put a few more pieces in place and see what we've got here. Because I don't think, even if you're the best prospect in the entire world coming out of college, look at the difference. Look at how we feel at this point in time between Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. They put everything in place for CJ Stroud. They had Gerard Johnson, who's a quarterback. That guy's awesome. He played quarterback himself. They had a great offensive coordinator. They didn't necessarily have a great O-line, but they put all of the other things. They got healthier as the season progressed, but they tailored the game book to what CJ Stroud could do, and they rolled him out slowly, meaning they did the 100 level stuff and then the 200 level stuff. They're not out there being like, okay, I need you to throw outside the numbers 45 yards. Got it? Great. Enjoy. Against Aaron Donald with one hand tied behind your back. A lot of these quarterbacks, coming out of college, they've never seen zone defense. A lot of them, they've never taken a snap under center. Never might be an overestimation. They rarely see zone defense. They rarely take a snap under center. These are things that modern NFL football, you can't imagine, all of those tush pushes, they come under center. Mm-hmm. If you have a rookie quarterback, you don't even get to, that's kind of out of it, because they don't really know how to take the handoff under center, at least for a couple of games. So it's crazy. My whole point is, I don't know. Caleb Williams looks awesome. Let me be clear, but so does Justin Fields. So keep the guy that you know exactly what his skill sets are, and make it work around him, because there are so many assets available to you in this draft that can do that.
Cynthia, I'm glad you brought up that the first half of the season with Justin Fields. It felt a lot like the Bears were, in the 90s and early 2000s, when you had these mobile quarterbacks coming out of college, and then everybody insisted on trying to turn them into pocket passers instead of using their skill sets. It felt like that's what it felt like. They got a time machine, went back to the 2002 Falcons playbook, and was like, hey, Michael Vick, don't run. You're going to be a pocket passer today. It's I don't know that people appreciate how bizarre that was for the first half of the season for the Bears.
It was so strange, especially in an era now. See, at least in defense of the early 2000s, there were perhaps your coordinator, perhaps the staff there, they didn't maybe have enough plays in the playbook for that they knew would work or they felt comfortable with. And people tend to become risk averse at the NFL level. Mm-hmm. The ones who aren't, those are the ones who succeed. But it seems to me at least back then, you didn't have a ton of examples. This year, immobile guys have designed quarterback runs, right? This year, truly, guys who are I'm sorry, did Kirk Cousins, did they just do design quarterback runs for Kirk Cousins? And you're like, wow, okay, that guy's a pocket. And that's where it's weird, because you've got a guy with wheels. Justin Fields is an incredible speed demon. What are you doing? That was confusing to me. So I'm glad to see him use his legs more. But it's even Lamar Jackson, who's our probable MVP. We were talking about him earlier. It's unlikely he would be the guy who we see as this MVP candidate if he didn't have a whole system designed around his skill set.
Cynthia, I know you said it'd be a conversation for a different day. I kind of want to make it a conversation for today, seeing as Washington is in the national championship game on Monday. You said you liked Rome over Marvin Harrison Jr. and Marvin Harrison Jr. on
Doomsday. Yep.
Yeah. You like him more than Harrison Jr. And Marvin's, at least on every mock draft that you see, well above Rome. I mean, he's second on the board. You have Malik Neighbors that I think falls at 3. Keon Coleman would probably be the 4th wide receiver off the board. Why do you like Odunze more than you like Harrison Jr.?
Well, it's not like heads and shoulders different, right? It's not like around different. It's a flavor different, right? Like when you start to do draft coverage, the first thing that I start by doing is, of course, always look, obviously quarterback. We all talk about quarterback in most of the media, so I got to go where my bosses need me to go, right? So I start with that. And then I go with wide receivers, and I look at their route tree, and I look at the precision of their route tree, because a lot of guys who've had a lot of success, like see your Garrett Wilson, see your Justin Jefferson, see your Jamar Chase, their route tree, and even Justin Jefferson coming out there, like he only runs out of the slot, and you're like, well, but when he is, that's where they line him up. But when he is running aligned out wide, his precision with route running actually doesn't change. And that's the type of thing you're looking at. You're like, okay, and what happens when he's got, everyone plays man in college. Like almost everyone plays man in college. What happens when he's in double, triple coverage? How does that change? And you actually saw it in that game with that ridiculous catch that, like, he's on the perimeter, over the shoulder, like doesn't even flinch. The defender's in his face, and that's a good defender too. It's not like, the defenses in that game weren't as good as the defenses in the Michigan games. We got it. But that still was a ridiculous. You're watching all that stuff, and go watch the entire season he put together. The route tree is so precise, and it's even with, his quarterback's good, but there have been more precise passers in, like Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase was a pretty good thing, but you're just watching this route tree, and you're watching his timing. He's running exactly the same speed on each route. He's so consistent. That will really help at the next level. Not that Marvin Harrison Jr. isn't, but he's just a smidge more. And his fourth quarter stats, because they play so much offense, like all of the time, his fourth quarter stats, he doesn't get fatigued. The man doesn't have a drop off in his speed. So it's not that I'm not out here banging the drum saying I don't like Marvin Harrison Jr. That's not it at all. I'm just saying, for a certain team that has those, there's so many Shanahan tree guys. This is a Shanahan tree guy. This is like a Jalen Waddle, what routes should Jalen Waddle run? Okay, this is the one for him. And Jalen Waddle's very smart. That's why I say him.
Cynthia, we've got about a minute left here, and we're gonna have to have you back and just talk draft, because we're both huge draft nerds here.
Yes, love draft.
But real quick on quarterbacks, Caleb Williams, Drake May are at the top of the board. You mentioned Michael Penix. Where does he fall for you in that? Is he in that first round group, or does he a little bit lower?
He's going to Shane's Raiders.
I don't see him falling out. It's going to be weird how the top of the draft shakes out. I don't like being top 10. Not yet.
Sure.
We got to see how free agency goes.
Yeah.
But I don't see him falling out of it. I think this draft season is going to be fascinating for the quarterbacks. There's a couple of guys who the top guys always worry me because they're put in often bad situations. So we'll have to see. Penix to me doesn't fall out of the top, crew, first round, but I don't know where.
Cynthia Frelund from the NFL Network. Cynthia, next time, we'll probably get some NFL playoffs, but at some point we are getting a whole segment of NFL draft and just going to nerd out. I can't wait. We appreciate your time, as always. We'll talk to you again soon.
You got it. You guys stay warm. Happy New Year.
Thanks, Cynthia.
That's Cynthia Frelund from the NFL Network. Coming up next, we've got to catch up on some of our New Year's resolutions we didn't quite get to. But first, we've got Andy Kendeigh from KETV. We're halfway through the show here on a Wednesday on Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi, Lulla, Andrew Rogers here with me. We're live on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, as well as Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube on the video stream. Joining us now on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline is Andy Kendeigh from KETV. Andy, how are you this morning?
Morning, boys. Happy New Year.
Happy.
It's the 3rd. When does Happy New Year become? When do we move on?
I think
Happy New Year this whole week.
I think the end of the week. Yeah, I think that's
at least for us radio guys. Like we get to tell everybody Happy New Year at least once, and then it's over.
Yeah. My other question is, when is it appropriate to take down Christmas lights? When are you overdoing it? Like, when is it time?
I'm gonna be honest. I don't mind them staying. I'll let it go until at least we've had like a warm weekend. I don't expect people to get out there in like 20-degree weather and like leave them up. It's fine. It's pretty. I don't care.
I don't know. I'm with AK a little bit because I think I know where his head's at. And, once you pass the new year, like I think that's like your 2-week notice. Like that's like your notice you give your job.
Well, it's interesting because back when I was a young lad, I remember the lights and Christmas tree, all that stuff, still being up for the Super Bowl, which right now seems ridiculous because the Super Bowl's in February, but back then it was mid-January, which still was pushing it. We were the last on the block, no question. But yeah, we had the whole family out there on Sunday getting rid of the Christmas lights because we found a pocket of decent weather, and so. But yeah, I get it. I was just always wondering, like I said, we're not taking them down before New Year's Day, absolutely not. So. We got them down before the Rose Bowl. That was our big task. That's probably the earliest we've ever done.
Yeah, I just I'm not gonna blame people. I'm not trying to be outside.
Do you put up Christmas lights?
Not outdoor.
Then you don't get to have any say in this.
But again, I don't put them up because it's not warm out. I'm not trying to decorate.
You don't put them up because you don't want to take them down right after the New Year.
Exactly. I might get some of those.
Don't be light shaming people.
I'm not. I'm saying keep them up as long as you want to. I did have a buddy install permanent lights. Have you seen those? You can install permanent permanent Christmas lights, and he's in love with them.
Yeah. I also have friends who have put up lights and just keep them on their trees all year long.
Yeah, just don't turn them on.
They just don't turn them on. Save you a step in December.
Little life hack, right?
Yeah, and then they plug them in, and half of them are out.
Yeah, none of them work.
No question. Or there's one bulb that's out that kills the rest of the
right. Andy, as we're catching up this week as we were off last week, and a lot that happened. You had Metro basketball tournament over Stoke. I think just last night was semifinals in the boys at least. But one of the big stories locally over the weekend was the passing of Gretna head basketball coach Brad Feeken, and then they had that incredible buzzer beater that night. Just in your experience, I know you get to know some of these guys. I don't know how well you knew Coach Feeken, but just how incredible kind of was that moment for the Gretna basketball team to win in that fashion after what they had experienced that day?
Well, yeah, I know Coach Feeken a bit. I'm not going to pretend that I know him. I knew him very well, but we did cross paths many times in state tournaments down in Lincoln, and obviously throughout the years covering his teams. And he was always a guy that didn't want to make it about himself. And even when he had his illness begin, he didn't want to make it about himself. He wanted to deflect a lot of the attention to his kids and his players and what they were doing on the court. He was a terrific guy, though, in my dealings with him, and really rubbed off on his players. He was competitive and was fiery, and that obviously was one of the characteristics his teams have shown. And one of the great moments in sports of the whole year happened in that quarterfinal game when they hit that buzzer beater. Now, the magical run ended last night because they ran into a good, solid Omaha Central team in the semifinals, but that does not take away from that moment that, for a kid to hit a buzzer beater on the afternoon after the morning when the coach passes away, it's just one of those things that leaves you. It's unexplainable. Like he can't, it's one of those things. He's just like, well, it just makes you wonder higher beings and all that stuff. It's just one of those cool moments. And really life lesson. I was thinking about this yesterday too. I mean, these kids and some, quite honestly, some of the adults, they've never lost somebody close to them, and so this is a tough deal for everybody involved. And, Gretna's got a very tight community, and that's a benefit in times like these where they can really come together and try to power through a very difficult time.
AK, looking back at the Metro Holiday Tournament for a moment, instead of making a so-called like winners and losers list from that tournament, I kind of want to take this more in the direction of, how you've assessed high school basketball up to this point. Who would you consider some of the winners this season in terms of like they found something about themselves that could be really special once they hit the back half?
Well, I'll just take the low-hanging fruit, and that's the teams that are in the finals. I think Bellevue West has figured out that as great as Coach Woodard is and will always be remembered, they can still play some basketball moving forward. They're still very capable, and they're going to win a bunch of games, and that's no question about it. And if this early part of the season proved that, and then on Omaha Central, who they're going to play in the final tonight. Central has proven that they can play some hard-nosed defense and hit the buckets when they can. They outscored Gretna 20-11 last night in the fourth quarter, which really, really put them over the top. And Bruce Chubbuck Jr., he's got a team there, so it's going to be an interesting, coaching matchup between Coach Klein and Coach Chubbuck tonight. And, that being said, on the girls' side, I think there may be a little more separation between the top tier and let's say the first 8. There's a few teams at the top in the Metro at least, and those two teams will meet tonight in Millard West and Omaha Central, which I think 9-0 versus 11-0, that's pretty good. And with Millard West with the twins, those two kids can play ball, the Gesser twins, and it's not just them, so, and on the flip side, Central with Ania Jones, we've been seeing her for years. So it's going to be a fun doubleheader tonight. And, it's funny. I was talking to Matt Foster, over break, and he had the unenviable task of anchoring in that little pocket of time when there's no Nebraska bowl game, and you're just trying to get the New Year's. And then I come back yesterday, and there's high school basketball semifinals and the holiday hoops tournament. Creighton playing last night. We got Creighton women playing UConn tonight. We got Indiana playing Nebraska basketball. They're off to an incredible start. And I'm like, what are you complaining about? There's plenty to do. And he was like, oh my God. He was like, you should have seen last week when the crickets were chirping. So, you come back at the right time, I guess. So tonight is one of the busier nights of January. I mean, shoot, we got a doubleheader in high school basketball. You got UConn coming to town, and you got Nebraska and Indiana playing tonight. I mean, my goodness, plus UNO's playing tonight for men and at home. So you got a whole bunch of stuff going on tonight.
So Andy, with all that going on, where do you find yourself tonight?
Great question.
At the station, letting Matt Foster and the rest of them work.
Yeah. I mean, ideally, that's the plan.
It's good to be sports director, huh?
Fellas, as you know, you got to have a plan and adapt and adjust. So we'll see. I'm going somewhere, whether it's Creighton, UConn, or the high school hoops finals. That's it. I know I'm not going to Lincoln because that's an 8 o'clock start. I couldn't get back in time for the bed. But Matt Cecili's going to Lincoln. Matt Foster is off. He's trying to get healthy, man. He was sicker than a dog. Talk about that. Being all by yourself in the anchor desk and really struggling through, whatever, a bad cold that he had. And, it's tough. So tip of the hat to Matt Foster for powering through. So we'll find out if we get any help from our friends in the news department, and we'll go from there.
What a trooper!
what a trooper! Look, that's a good leader there. Just adapt and be ready to roll. Andy, we appreciate your time as always. Enjoy whatever sporting event you find yourself at tonight. There's plenty to choose from, and I'm glad you don't have to make that late trip to Lincoln because you might be cutting a little bit close, even if you left at halftime there.
No, he'll be doing it live from PBA.
Live broadcast from Lincoln. Andy, we appreciate your time as always. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, fellas. Be good.
See you, AK.
That's Andy Kendeigh on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline. Coming up next, got some resolutions to catch up on from yesterday. It's still the new year, like Andy Kendeigh said. Still happy new year through the end of the week. By Friday, we'll get through most of these. Maybe. Who knows? We'll see. That's coming up next here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. I'm Ravi, Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with you as well. I want to tell you about our friends at Warhorse Sportsbook. It is just about time for the Warhorse Festival of Games. Visit Warhorse Casino to earn entries into their $100,000, you heard that right, $100,000 prop card challenge and grand prize drawing. Visit warhorsecasino.com for more details. In the Warhorse Festival of Games prop card challenge, you have a chance to win $100,000 in the grand prize drawings. You can win your share of $20,000 cash or free slot play. Remember, this is just at the Warhorse Casino in Lincoln. It is free to participate for Warhorse Rewards members. $100,000 prop card challenges for the big football game in February. Just make some simple predictions about the game to be eligible to win. That's warhorsecasino.com for more information, just at the Lincoln location. But if you want to play some sports bets, you can still do that at the Omaha location as well at Horseman's Park. That's Warhorse Sportsbook. No bets, no glory. It's time for to catch up a little bit on our New Year's resolutions. Now, we both had a Nebraska one yesterday. Mine was Dylan Raiola related.
Mine was fan oriented.
Yours was fan oriented about the attitude of fans. We mentioned it earlier this morning as well. You had a couple more Nebraska ones though too.
Yeah, there's kind of a few that fall together offensively, but I think it starts here.
Okay.
I think it's important for this Husker football team to keep offensive coordinator Marcus Satterfield on a short leash.
Okay.
I think it's important that he gets another opportunity with this offense to try to find a way to patch up the problems that we saw out of that offense last year, because I don't think entirely it was his fault based on how the injury bug hit this team and what he was kind of left with and how he had to adjust. Now, I don't think decision-making was any better in moments. So I think it's still important, though, to give him the opportunity, but keep a tight leash on him. And then it all kind of comes into my next point of finding a way to revamp the red zone offense.
Okay.
So, yes, adding experience out wide and adding more experience in the running back room to provide depth is important for this team. But in terms of gameplay, getting to the red zone was difficult for this team.
At times, yes.
They found their points on chunk plays in a lot of games down the stretch more than they did, hey, we're at the 20. Yeah. We're gonna find a way to either run it downhill, run it down your throat, or make a few plays to get into the end zone.
They struggled sustaining drives for most of the year.
So the number one team was Oregon State this year in success rate in terms of red zone offense. 97%. That's incredible.
Good. That's good.
Really, really incredible.
Yeah.
But the Huskers were the third lowest.
It's gonna make me sad.
At 69%.
It's not very good.
That type of success rate when another team, and I know Oregon State was a really good football team this year, but there were a lot of other teams up there in the high 80s and the low 90s and the mid 90s.
Also like 8-4. They were good. They weren't special.
Right. Nebraska needs to get to the red zone more, yes, to get that percentage up. But two, they only had 29 attempts last year.
Yeah, they didn't.
They just weren't there. They just weren't there enough, and they didn't give themselves an opportunity to win a lot of football games because they were only averaging, let's just say, 16, 17 points a game. I don't really remember that number. It's really important to focus on that this coming season because it seems like pieces are coming, but now it's about how they execute on the football field, and that guidance is important to get them in position to put points on the board for Nebraska. I think it's really, really important to revamp how they look at their red zone offense.
Yeah, and I wonder how much what I believe are impending staff changes will impact that, right? Because I don't think Marcus Satterfield's going anywhere. I do think they are bringing in a quarterback coach who I would imagine will either have the title, I've said this before, of either co-offensive coordinator or passing game coordinator. And I believe that's going to be Glenn Thomas. He's currently with the Steelers. I think after the NFL season, we will hear after the regular season, so maybe as soon as this time next week, we will hear an announcement that Glenn Thomas is joining the Nebraska staff. I fully anticipate that to happen. So with that in mind, you hope that he brings some of that creativity. You hope he brings some of the ability to sustain drives, to give themselves more red zone opportunities so that they can convert at a higher level. Because let's be totally real here. Even if that number is in the same neighborhood, call it 70, 75%, which is still not a good number. If they're just able to get there more, they win more games. Because even being ineffective and inefficient in the red zone, you can survive that if you have a ton of red zone trips, right? You're not going to like it. You're not going to win as much as you should.
But you wouldn't also have a 69% success rate if you made it to the red zone a ton.
Right. Part of it is, I mean, honestly, I think part of it's game reps, right? Like you don't have very many game reps in those situations to get a comfort level for, oh, this is kind of one of our bread and butter plays down in the red zone, or this is something that we feel confident our guys can execute down in the red zone. I think with the addition of some new ideas in the offensive room with Glenn Thomas, presumably Glenn Thomas, I think that's going to be a big part of what you're talking about in not only creating more opportunities, but being more efficient when you do it.
Well, and here's another good example. Illinois was the worst team in the Big Ten West this season. Yes, they had the same conference record as Nebraska, Purdue, and Minnesota, but they were 5-7, and Nebraska had the edge over them. So they are considered the worst team in the Big Ten West this year. Their percentage executing in the red zone was 91%. And if you carried over that 0.7 to make it a whole number, it would be 92%. And they only made 36 trips. Nebraska made 29. So they made 5 more trips, but they were 92% in the red zone. So yes, that's how I'm talking about that percentage can really shift in a small number, but it's also not unforeseeable to see them in the neighborhood of, let's just call it Arizona, who made 57 red zone trips this year.
Basically twice what Nebraska had.
It's not crazy to look at, South Carolina, who made 40 red zone trips in the SEC this year. It's not crazy to look at Virginia Tech, who made 52 red zone trips this year. Like, I'm just trying to find comparable programs outside of Penn State, who was 58 or 64, and Michigan was 62, because that's a little unreasonable for where Nebraska is today.
Those are higher level teams that are playing a different level.
But Northwestern made it 41 times. How far off is Nebraska from Northwestern?
I mean, they shouldn't be far at all. I mean, they should be better than Northwestern. At least talent wise, they should be better than Northwestern, although Northwestern had a great year this year. An improbable great year this year, considering what they were dealing with. But I mean, that's 12 red zone trips. That's an extra red zone trip every game, right? If you're converting that at a 75-80% clip, that's significant point totals that you're adding to your score there, which Nebraska desperately needed.
And Rutgers made it 44 times.
Yeah. So to me, the big difference is less percentage, although you do have to convert at a better rate, but it's those opportunities.
But it's just getting there more.
If you don't
that's the whole point of that.
If you don't give yourself opportunities, you're not going to be able, you're just not going to score very much. That's the reality of the matter. Yes, chunk plays are nice. You want to have an offense that can get big plays, that can have these home runs, but you also have to be able to sustain drives and win in the red zone, because that's where we saw multiple games. What did we see? It was Wisconsin and Minnesota. Red zone interceptions ended those games. Those types of situations where you're driving to win a game, you're driving to take the lead late. Those are the places that Nebraska didn't execute this year. A, because they didn't get there very often. B, when they did get there, they didn't execute very well. So I think that's a really good point. And I'm hoping, we kind of haven't addressed the elephant in the room here either yet. I'm hoping the Dylan Raiola of it all helps that, but also the potential extra voice in the offensive coaching room helps change that as well. About a minute and a half here. Do you have any other resolutions?
Well, the last point that I wanted to add to that too is you tire out of defense when you get to the red zone.
Yeah.
And when you score on chunk plays, yes, it's a great thing because you threw a 60-yard bomb to Jalen Lloyd and you got 7 points. But how does that hurt the opposing defense? They just come off the field. They're still fresh.
Yeah,
they just got beat,
yeah,
but they're still fresh. But if you extend drives, that's how you control the game. That's how you really tire out a team. Think about how that will enhance those final drives, as you were talking about, when you get into the red zone. And this defense had to be on the field for a longer period of time.
Well, that's the thing I wanted to talk about, right? Because on the other side of that coin, where we talked about Nebraska's offense not being able to execute late, Nebraska's defense gave up some points late as well because of what you're talking about. They got worn out by other teams rather than the Nebraska offense wearing out other defenses. It's the same side. It's a different side to the same coin, where if you're able to do that, then you're putting your defense, who was very good this year, in a better position to be successful late. There's a difference between just being a good defense and being a good defense late. That good defense late is probably the part where Nebraska needed a little bit more help than what we saw them have this year. And a lot of that does fall on the offense to control the game and the pace and the time of possession a little bit more than what we saw this past season. Coming up next, we're going to talk to Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. Nebraska's got some visitors this weekend.
3 of them.
At some key positions of need. We will talk to BC about that and more coming up on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi, Lulla, Andrew Rogers here. We're on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and for this third hour, we're on KFOR in Lincoln. Joining us on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline is Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. BC, what's going on, man?
How you guys doing?
BC, good morning. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you guys.
How were your holidays, BC? Anything interesting going on?
It was uneventful, but at my age, that's what you're looking for. You're striving for most days to be uneventful.
Be a little bit more relaxing than pressure tested.
Yes, and that's good. Hopefully Matt Rule's program keeps us on our toes here in 2024 and gives us a lot of intriguing things and maybe a few more W's. That'd be kind of nice.
Well, speaking of keeping us on our toes, the Huskers are hosting a few key visitors this weekend. What can you tell us about some of these guys? I know Isaiah Nair, the wide receiver from formerly Wyoming and now Texas, has a lot of people's attention. But what do you know about where they stand with some of these guys they're trying to fill out the depth chart with?
Yeah, Nair was the name that came up yesterday. And unfortunately for him, he had that torn ACL right after he got to Texas. They were really pumped about him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all those good Texas receivers like Xavier Worthy and some of those names there this year. In 22, going into fall camp, he was being mentioned alongside those guys as a starter type player who was going to contribute right away. He came out of Wyoming and had a very productive career. I should say 21. He had a 21 season that was very good for Craig Bull's team. A lot of yards per catch, and seemed like a really good get, and a lot of schools wanted him. Texas got him, but I think that injury kind of set him back. He's been building his way back up, and it just never happened for him in Austin sort of after that happened. And so he's a veteran guy who, he's looking for that next move, and Nebraska at this point is an option. We'll see what happens there. I don't know much about what he's thinking about this visit, honestly. He's one of those guys who he hasn't said a lot. He just kind of confirmed that he's going to be here. Jamal Banks is another guy, who played at Wake Forest. And he told me yesterday morning he was planning on coming this weekend. So, that's what I know from him in a direct message. So we'll see. Everything's always fluid with those situations. It can change by the hour. But he's a guy who has had a very productive last couple of years at Wake. And, they've been a good football program too. And they're bigger receivers. They're veteran guys, both the guys we've mentioned who have played a lot of college football. So at the very least, we know what they're kind of targeting. They're targeting that, can you get me that 205, 215-pound receiver, and maybe he's been around college football for 4 years or something like that, where he can use that experience to help the other guys. And then, of course, there's Dante Dowdell, the running back out of Oregon, and I think his family's fired up about coming here. I'm really watching that one closely. He got kind of caught in the logjam with the Ducks at their running back spot, but we know there's an opening here at Nebraska at that position. They need somebody to push that competition. We don't know how Gabe and Ramir are going to come back from injuries and all that. You got Emmett and Quinton there, but one more name would be huge. And Dowdell was ranked 194th by 24/7 Sports coming out of Mississippi, where he had, count them up, I think more than 4,600 yards rushing his last 2 years of down in high school football there. He's a really, I mean, he had an amazing high school career. So I know he didn't do a lot for Oregon last year, but coming out of high school, he was very, very highly regarded.
Another big guy in Dante Dowdell as well. Do you think that's a body type that they're going for at running back as well? Or is that just kind of the best guy available and they kind of like what they see?
I couldn't say specifically if they're targeting that or not. I think it makes sense in this league if it's a bigger guy, but I don't get as caught up in that as some people. I've seen some backs who are 195 who can be physical, and then you've seen guys who are 215 who can't get their feet going, the wheels don't get turning and all that stuff. So I'm not as fired up about it as others, but I do think when you look at his measurables, your first thought in a passing description is like, oh yeah, that seems like it would play in the Big Ten, right? Where maybe he can be that physical back, but he'll have to show that, and we'll see if he ends up in Nebraska first off. But I do know with exchanges with his dad, this has been a conversation ongoing with Nebraska since basically he entered the portal right around December 20th. So this has been building for a couple of weeks, and this visit date has been targeted pretty early on in that process. And yesterday I was just confirming, like, you're still planning to come, right? And said, absolutely we are. So I get the sense there's a lot of vinegar for that one from their side about, seeing what Nebraska has to offer. And here's a kid who thinks he's probably a pretty good player waiting for his opportunity. So it could be we'll see if it's a good match.
You don't happen to think, BC, that this could be a trickle-down effect of Dylan Raiola's commitment at all, seeing these three visitors on campus? Or do you just think it's just more of a case of, hey, we saw what Nebraska's program did last year. We like what's going on over there, and that's why we're taking a chance in visiting?
I would not dismiss, without saying each guy, I would not say specifically, oh, this guy's coming because of Raiola, but I would not dismiss the fact that in general, recruiting targets or portal targets are seeing what Nebraska's doing. And you see that they got Raiola, and it made such a splash that week, right? I mean, that Monday when that happened, when it was like, oh, he's going to flip. I mean, Nebraska was in the Twitter sphere or the social media sphere, whatever you want to call it, more than I've seen him during the season in a long time on that particular night when it was talking about Dylan Raiola. And there was sort of a, whether it's right or wrong or in the middle, there was the interpretation like Nebraska's going for this. They're getting out the driver, they're going to clear the water here. And I think people took notice of it, and you couldn't miss it if you are a player who is right now considering your options. Like, okay, that's a program that one, you're like, they're going for it. Two, you realize they probably got an NIL situation that's not bad, that maybe is going to be interesting to me. You see the passion that sort of surrounded when Raiola made his decision, and guys say that, man, I could be a rock star there. Like Vincent Shavers, the linebacker from Miami who signed at the end there, him and his father came down that week, and they're kind of an example of this. They were just like blown away by like how much people care about the program here and just how much it means to everybody. And so I think guys do pick up on that. And I will say this as a final answer to that question, Andrew. Jamal Banks in his exchange yesterday, the receiver out of Wake, I asked him why, and it was just a brief thing, but he mentioned Raiola specifically in his answer. It was a short answer, but, whether that's just playing to the crowd a little bit and, that's the answer people like or not, he said it. And so that's interesting to me.
We're talking with Brian Christopherson, a Husker 24/7. BC, speaking of Raiola and the transfer portal, do you expect Nebraska to try and add any depth in that quarterback room, even if it maybe not a what you would call a starter caliber type guy, but do you expect them to target anybody there for some depth purposes?
I don't know if they're going to add anybody at this point. Not immediately. Now, I think you got to remember this thing could open up again after the spring, and maybe you pluck somebody there. And so maybe that's the time to see sort of how guys go through it, where you're at with those quarterbacks. Also, what you have, they've got a couple walk-ons that are kind of interesting to them. And, Rule has always said this. He said when he's asked about the competition at the position, he's like, I'm the guy who has started a walk-on at quarterback before. So the point being, they're going to give all those guys a look to see like, yeah, maybe there is a quarterback already in that room who nobody's talking about, who could be a third or fourth guy, like something like that. And so that's kind of my sense, Ravi, is I don't know that it's going to happen right now. I don't expect it at all, actually. But like after the spring, it's one of those things I think you definitely keep a watch on.
BC, revisiting those three visitors just one more time. In terms of like as you assess the Huskers' immediate needs, would you say experience at the wide receiver position, or would you say additions to the running back room are more important to the Huskers right now?
That's a good question. You could do a whole hour on that one, probably. I would say running back to me. I know. I think they need both. Don't get me wrong. Like I hope they add at least one veteran receiver and a running back. And first off, with running back, if you're going to go that way, he's got to be a guy that you really think deep down can be like a one or two guy right away. Like, not one of these deals where you're pretty unsure about how it's going to go. Obviously they're going to compete and all that, but you're hoping it's that kind of immediate impact guy. Dowdell, could be an example of that. We'll see. But I just think Nebraska's got to really put a focus on making running back a great position in this offense again. And it's been okay some years, but it just hasn't been something that jumps out at you to me since Amir Abdullah. You got to go back to like Amir. I know Divino Zigbo had a great, statistical year, but I'm talking about that back who everybody on the field knows it's just special when he touches the ball. He makes 4-yard runs out of no-yard runs. He makes 10-yard runs out of 2-yard runs, that, where he gets the extra and makes your O-line look good in the process, makes your quarterback look good. And so finding somebody like that, I think, is imperative. They aren't easy to find because there's always, in college football, every cycle, there's like 400 good running backs out there. Like, okay, they can get you something. And then there's 10 to 12, something like that, who are just great, who take it to another level. When you watch it, you're like, oh, there's something different about them. Can Nebraska find one of those guys pretty soon? I think it would be a huge lift to this program.
BC just being so disrespectful about the Jaguars Yant spring game. You didn't get excited about the Yant spring game? Come on, man.
I like the Jaguars Yant Northwestern game. That was kind of fun.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, when he had a big day.
BC,
forgot about that guy.
I knew there was one game that he went off in the regular season. I couldn't remember which one it was. That makes sense, though. BC, you mentioned that running back room. Am I crazy? Or I'm kind of bullish on the wide receiver room. I know they're young. I know they're inexperienced, but I kind of like a lot of those pieces. Am I nuts?
No, that's why I didn't answer receiver. I think they need help. Like it would be nice if they he's your one receiver. He's a veteran. He's done it. I really like the guy from Wake if he ends up coming this weekend and all that. And maybe Nair's that guy too. But I do think a lot of the young pieces are pretty interesting, not just the ones we know about. Obviously, Lloyd showed us something that he can be explosive. And I think Lloyd did a lot in limited plays. Like if you actually look at his play count, he was not like a 40 play a game guy, though they were sort of depleted there. He was more in that 18 to 20 range. So I'm kind of curious what happens as he knows more. I think he's going to be really dedicated to figuring out more and all the positions he can do. I think he can be really good. But Demetrius Bell is a guy I'm interested if he can keep putting his head down, doing the stuff behind the scenes. He did it in the fall. If he can do that in the spring, he could be a storyline there because I think from what I gathered, he's pretty impressive as a player, like between the lines and stuff he's done. And so there's some young guys, obviously Malachi, who I think is going to I think he's going to take a big leap this year. I just think he was figuring it out last season. He already loves to be physical. And he had that quote in the season where he's like, I love to take a man and just move him from his space and put him 10 yards over there. It's something like that. And I was like nodding my head to it like, yes, so I think he's got the right mentality. So I like a lot of like you do that they have there. Add one guy maybe who's a veteran who really fills it out a bit, maybe two. I don't know. It's possible, I guess. And I think they could be okay. They got to have a quarterback who can throw them the ball. I think that was one of their biggest issues last year.
BC, one guy you didn't mention was Jaden Doss. That's a guy that they were super high on going into the fall last year before he got injured. I mean, is it totally out of the question that he emerges as maybe one of the, I've heard people talk really highly about Demetrius Bell. Obviously, we know Coleman and Lloyd because we saw him a lot last year. Is it possible that Jaden Doss just kind of emerges from behind the scenes and ends up being kind of that guy?
Absolutely. Jaden Doss in early August last fall was going to play right away. Mm-hmm. And then he suffered that hand-arm injury. And so it sidetracked him. He works his way back. By the middle of the season, they throw him in, but they stopped him at 4 games. They wanted to keep their red shirt. I think that speaks to something about they see a lot of value in like, we want this guy in this program a little while. And also give credit to Billy Kemp, by the way, on this one real quick, because Billy Kemp was pretty banged up and he kept going out there and took his lumps. And he saved Jaden Doss's red shirt in a way by being able to finish out those games, even though I don't think he was 100%. So I think that's a big deal. And it's absolutely right to bring his name up. I should have mentioned him with the other guys. There's probably someone else I'm forgetting, but Jaden is that kind of player. Ja'Cory Barney, I think, is going to be really interesting out of the Miami area. He's a guy who's very confident in his skills, as all those Miami guys are when you talk to him. It's kind of fun. They're like, yeah, I'm coming in. I'm going to play. He's coming in a week or two. He's going to be on campus, and here you go. So that'll be a storyline too. They've got 5 Miami guys coming in, and some of our skill guys. They have struggled with the past staff. That's the past staff at keeping Florida guys here. They've got them here, and then they've left. Can they get those Miami guys to develop and really get a pipeline going there and make it a thing? And that's going to be something to watch too.
BC, I want to take a peek at the quarterback position one more time now, because I kind of want to think future here. If you created a timeline of events to describe the quarterback room this offseason all the way up to the first game of the season, so skip past spring, the spring game, the summer, fall camp, everything, skip all the way to the start of next season, how do you think things shake out? Who do you think the staff adds, if any? Because you kind of already alluded to the fact that you don't feel like super confident that they are just going to add somebody else to that room. And 3, what needs to be seen in order for you to lock in a starter comfortably?
I'd be kind of surprised if they lock in a starter after the spring. First off, when we're talking timeline, I think they'll play that through the fall, knowing the way this staff operates, or just having watched them the last season. I think they're going to want to keep that competition kicking. The thing that I'd want to see the most is security with the ball. Like if we go back to last spring, guys, we were told what was going to happen before it happened, and we maybe didn't want to believe it. If you go the spring game, I mean, it was sloppy. They just fumbling, they fumbled the ball all over the place in that game. I think they had lost it. They put it on the rug 8 or 9 times. And the week before that spring game, they had a big scrimmage, almost as important to them as the other one that everyone sees. And Rule came out and told the press, yeah, there's good things, but we turned it over a bunch of times, just unforced stuff. And they had another practice where that happened. And so when you kind of look back on it, you're like, man, all March and April, we were told that they're just like dropping the football over there. And there was obviously hope they're going to get that corrected and stuff. But I think in the spring with those quarterbacks, even if there's some easy stuff and there's going to be turnovers, of course, but you don't want to see just the silly giveaways. It's like, here you go. Here's a gift, to the defense, which then worked its way to Boulder, Colorado, like here's a gift to the defense. So I'm hoping from the quarterback spot that there's talk about pretty clean play for young guys and that it's true. And then I think that the timeline is you don't make that decision until mid-August on who the starter is, because I don't think anyone's going anywhere of those 3 scholarship guys. So I don't think they're in a bind now at this point with Chubb out the door. The Heinrich seems like he's dedicated to helping this team somehow. And the other guys are just getting started. So they're not going to run away yet. So I think you could take your time with that. And just keep that thing rolling. And then maybe in the summer when that portal window is open again, you evaluate, do we need somebody or can we maneuver this where it helps to add another guy? Or do we have that 4th QB maybe in a walk-on or something? I think that's what you got to get out of the spring.
BC, we've got about 3 minutes left here. I wanted to switch gears to basketball, if that's okay. Obviously,
huge game.
Yeah, Nebraska ball has a huge game against Indiana tonight. Start of a 5-game stretch that's really important for them. After Indiana at home tonight, they go at Wisconsin, number 21 in the country. Then they've got number 1 Purdue at home, and then they go at Iowa, at Rutgers, which is one of the toughest places to play in the country. Judging by this next stretch here, where I think you've got to get at least 2 wins to kind of keep your momentum going for Nebraska, how important is this game against Indiana tonight?
Well, I think it's big because of the ones you mentioned, of the next 3 with Indiana, Wisconsin, Purdue at least, I think Iowa's gettable the way they're going right now. Mm-hmm. But Indiana might be the best win chance, I think. And that sounds weird to say because, you think Indiana and all that. But they're 10-3, they're 2-0. They've got they can throw a pretty good big lineup at you that's going to test Nebraska, especially if rink mass is limited or not available. And yet, I've watched them play a couple times this year, and I've thought if Nebraska brings it on the defensive end and attacks the glass, and even if they can just make it a standoff where it's even on the boards, I think Nebraska has a good shot tonight, especially at home. Should be an energized crowd. The thing that's going to be interesting, guys, is how this Husker team deals with sort of the expectations and weight of this game, because where this team has hit some potholes this year is actually when people have kind of leaned in to watch, right? I mean, when it was that Creighton game and then, all right, get the Big Ten started against Minnesota, and they blew it in the second half. Then everybody kind of fell off. And then Nebraska rallied sort of in that week. There's still people paying attention, but I think some people are kind of like, this isn't going to go anywhere. And then Nebraska got going again in that week when nobody was really as fired up about it, and rebuilt their season. Good for them. But this is the type of game now where everybody's back on it and they're like, come on, give me hope. And they gotta go just be that team that wins the 50-50 balls and doesn't give up, 15 offensive boards tonight, that sort of thing. And it'd be huge to get this one because the next 2 are going to be difficult, and you're working rink back. Mm-hmm. It's not an easy situation because of the mass injury. That's what's unfortunate. You wish they were just full go and rink was healthy as could be, but we'll see what he can do, if he can do anything tonight. That'd be big.
That's Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7 BC. We appreciate your time as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Happy New Year.
Thanks, BC.
That's our friend Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. I want to tell you real quick about our friends at Dyer Law. I tell you all the time about how they can help you with personal injury claims, but they also have another area of expertise, and it's workman's comp. Confused about options for your workers' compensation claim? Put the trust that you have for your personal injury claims into the Dyer Law team for your workers' comp claims as well. Call 402-393-7529 or visit dyerlaw.com. That's DYER.law to get advice from trusted professionals. That's Dyer Law. Coming up next, Anna Bellinghausen from Hurrdat Sports. Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln. I'm Ravi, Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me. We're live from the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill on the H&H Chevrolet stage. You can also catch us on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook on the video stream. Did I miss any? Is that all the places you can find us?
Pretty sure.
I mean, you can also download the podcast anywhere that podcasts are stored.
We are apparently on TuneIn, but not this week because of that.
Yeah, we're having
outage
some
that took place.
Some technical difficulties that are a little out of our control right now, but we're getting to it here. And joining us now is our friend Anna Bellinghausen, our Hurrdat Sports colleague. How are you, Anna?
I'm great. How are you guys?
What's up, baby?
We're
I'm looking for a photo for you.
We're doing
What?
So I don't know why Andrew was talking about people's prom photos.
No. I showed you something funny, but we didn't show Anna.
Oh, okay.
On
Yes,
Twitter. And
okay,
then I said,
yeah.
Anna, we're looking at a picture of you in high school. And Anna's like, I want to see your prom picture.
Yes.
I do, yes.
So, I don't have a prom picture, but this was like, then we got talking about like how much hair I had in high school. So like, this is like the head of hair I had when I was a senior. I had a lot.
You were rocking the Bieber
I
cut?
had a lot of hair.
Let me
Definitely
see.
Justin
Let me see
Bieber
here.
inspired.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
Yep.
Oh, that is a swoop. Let's show the camera here and show the people. So that's A-Raj there in the with
my fat head.
Yeah, holding his own fat head, not the
Oh,
one with the
boy.
hat on. He's the other
Look like
guy.
a heartbreaker.
I was 3 months and done in high school. That's a true statement.
So there's the Andrew Rogers.
Yeah, like look at this Bieber
hair.
sway.
Yeah, that
Wow.
is man, that is straight Bieber hair right there. Anna, how was your Christmas break?
It was awesome. I got out to Colorado to visit my parents.
Okay.
Got to hang out in the mountains and with our new puppy Moose. He is a handful out there, but
Terrific puppy name.
yes, very good one for Colorado as well. And then I got a debut on CBS Sports Network.
Shane,
Okay,
where's the clap?
yeah,
Where's the
there
clap?
we
Come
go.
on.
Shane, I'm waiting.
We're just gonna keep clapping until Shane figures it out. Come on, Shane.
Well, no, I didn't say
Thanks,
for you
Shane.
to turn on your mic and then clap. Like get the sound effect rolling.
No, that was awesome. Started up in Grand Forks, which I'd never been to Grand Forks. Lovely people up there.
I can't imagine it's a place you'd want to live. Especially
You
Not in the
never
winter.
know.
Not in the winter. I don't know.
like
It's,
at this time of year, no way.
Well, luckily I got up there and it was about 30 degrees and
Okay.
not,
not negative
a
30
foot
degrees.
of snow
Yeah.
and negative 30 wind chill.
Yeah.
But so I didn't get the proper Grand Forks welcome, but it was a nice town. Definitely a college town. Probably pretty fun in the summer, I would imagine, but the wintertime, not so much.
How did you feel about your CBS Sports debut? You feel good? You feel like you nailed it?
Yeah, I felt really good. We had great crews, great producers, and the colleagues I was working with were awesome and made me feel right at home with them. So that's always important to have good people you're working with, and just kind of makes you more confident and feel better.
Dream moment.
That was a dream moment.
Yeah, dream
Okay, I would say the full circle moment was the UNO game. So I got to go
That's
down
cool.
to
Yeah.
Vermillion and be on the
That's cool.
broadcast for Omaha versus USD. And that was really cool. Again, just a UNO alum out here. And I think it just speaks a lot to maybe you don't have to go to the most renowned journalism program in the world, but you can still make success out of anything you got.
It's amazing. Like it really just depends on your personality. Like Lindenwood was a nice broadcasting
Mhm.
school, but it wasn't like Missouri J school or
Yeah.
Sure,
anything.
yeah.
Or like Syracuse
Or
where all the big
Northwestern or
names
wherever,
go. Yeah. And it's just about like how you make a name for yourself at the end of the day. And so I admire that. No, Anna, congrats. That's
Thank you.
awesome.
Well done.
Outside of local Summit League basketball, there was a pretty nice Creighton win last
Yeah.
night. They got their first Big East win, and Ravi and I haven't really gotten into it just yet. And more, instead of asking like questions, I feel like we should just all round table this.
Yes.
Because Creighton has had their fair share of issues since Big East play has begun.
Yeah.
And it really wasn't until the second half last night that it seemed like they got back to their Creighton old ways.
Mhm. I mean, 11 turnovers in the first half. You're not going to beat too many teams doing that and not shooting the three ball as well as they'd like to. So I think it's a a good glimpse of hope, finding success against a Big East team on the road, despite all those turnovers and coming out in the second half and really turning on the Jets. So I think it shows all the potential Creighton has. You just got to put a full 40 minutes together.
Well, and the frustrating thing I think about the turnovers was it's not like Georgetown was doing much in order to force those. Creighton just seemed really, I don't know if disoriented is the right word, but they, for a few games now, and we saw this against UNLV at times as well in that bizarre loss that they took. Obviously, you had Marquette and Villanova, which are good teams, so especially Marquette, you maybe don't want to overreact to those, but they seem to have really lacked kind of the offensive cohesion that you expect from a Greg McDermott team. It seems like there's been a lot of kind of stagnant offense, a lot of standing around, kind of waiting for something to happen. And for me, that was the biggest difference between the first half and the second half, right? Like, yes, the turnovers were a stark difference, and you can put a number on it, but just the way they moved off the ball offensively, especially in that first, I don't know, like 8 to 10 minutes of the second half before the lead got kind of big and they sort of took their foot off the gas a little bit. That to me was the biggest difference between the times we've seen them struggle this year and when they actually look like a Creighton team that we're used to seeing. And I don't know, is it just like a focus, like an attention to detail thing for you? Or because I didn't really see anything different that they were doing except for, like, it's almost an effort thing at that point. Not to say that they're dogging it, but does that kind of make sense?
I don't know. I think there's still things that they have to figure out this season. I think they were expecting everything to click right away. And in those early games it was, but they weren't playing the toughest team. So I think they maybe assumed it was going to come a little bit easier. And now they've had some hardship and they're like, oh, wait, we do have some things to really figure out offensively, because you go into the season, you're like, this is going to be the easiest offense we've ever rolled with, right? You got shooters everywhere. You're never missing a shot, but oh no, you have 3 guys having bad shooting nights. What are you going to do about it, right?
Well, it seems like Shireman's taking on a bigger role, which is nice to see, but I don't think that is sustainable in a way either. Another point that, Ravi had brought up to me last night was, is Kalk open and guys are just missing him, or is he struggling to get open? And that's something that I've been battling, because there have been times where I'm like, feed him the ball, just get the ball inside. And then there's other times where I'm like, man, these guys just can't find a way because defenses are just packing the inside and double and triple teaming Kalkbrenner. So what I really think needs to be done with this team, and maybe nothing can be done about this other than get these non-stars on the team to become more confident, but they need to show up on alternate nights. You need Ashworth to put up more than 6-7 points in a game. You need Mason Miller to put up more than 4 to 7 points in a game, because against Marquette, they had that game under wrap. When Marquette wasn't making shots in the first half, Creighton held the lead all the way until the 9-minute mark of the second half. And then lead changes started to happen. But you had guys like Sean Jones, not Cam Jones, Sean Jones, go from 9 points a game to 20 points in that game. You need somebody that is a non-star to step up, because the focus is Trey Alexander, Baylor Shireman, and Kalkbrenner. Ashworth, Miller, Farabello, Fred King, whenever they come in, they have to heat up this team. Something has to spark with those guys.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think you need to get like you said, the non-stars. So basically everybody but Baylor and Trey at this point, because while Kalkbrenner's a star, I do think you need more out of him as well.
He's not hitting his total.
And I really do think, because both of the things you said can be true at the same time, right? They aren't getting him when he's open. And also he needs to get open more sometimes when they are double and triple teaming him. I think one thing that they were really counting on this year, and maybe I'm wrong, but I really think they were counting on Kalkbrenner being a little more consistent from the outside on those pick and pops. And he really hasn't had that this year. He hit 4 in one game earlier in the year, and he's only hit 2 since then. Yeah. Right. I think they were really relying on that, bringing the defenses out to make life a little bit easier for Shireman and Ashworth and Alexander and guys like that to get to the lane. So both of those things I think are true at the same time. I mean, Miller shot the ball incredible this year, only 1 for 4 last night, but I think he's well above 50% from 3 on the year. Trout shot the ball really well also. but it can't just be them. To me, I look at Ashworth and I look at Kalkbrenner as the guys that have to be more. Honestly, I think they're the stars that have to start playing like stars for me more than it is the non-stars. Real quick before we get into the next break, are you going to be at Creighton women's basketball tonight?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so Creighton women and UConn tonight. Let's start off. I know we're going to play some trivia, but let's start off next segment talking about that real quick because you got Gino Oriema coming to town. You got number 12 UConn coming to town. If you're looking for tickets, they're sold out already because this is a big game. So
thanks for letting people
Hey, there
know.
might be standing room only. They usually release those.
They might release some standing room only
Ravi's
for
like,
you.
if you want tickets, well,
tough luck. You should have thought about it before today. We'll talk more with Anna Bellinghausen about Creighton and UConn women going on tonight. A huge game over at DJ Sokol Arena. More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. Welcome back as we wrap up the show here on a Wednesday on Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla, Andrew Rogers here with me, as well as Anna Bellinghausen joining us here today. We're live on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln. I want to tell you real quick about our friends at Dingman's Collision Center. They have been family-owned and operated in Omaha for over 25 years. They've got 4 great metro area locations, and they've been voted first place best of Omaha for 18 years running. Part of that is because they invest in the latest technology. They can work on any make and model. I know my guy Andrew's got an appointment coming up here in a little bit.
I know I'm going to be carless for like 2 weeks
because he's got his Ford that he needs to take in there. No matter what you got a Ford, you got a Tesla, whatever. You can go get checked out at Dingman's Collision Center. They also invest in the community with their Give Back program. They give back with every car repaired. Go check out dingmans.com for more information. All right, Anna, we were talking about the Creighton women's team. They play a huge game tonight with their matchup against UConn. That is at 6 p.m. start on over at DJ Sokol Arena. And you're going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is a 10-2 Creighton team. They've gotten off to another good start.
Yeah.
Their only losses this year, they lost a close one at Marquette, which is a really tough game. And then they had kind of a bizarre loss at Green Bay earlier in the year as well. But overall, this is a team that's playing really good basketball again for Coach Flannery. What are some of the things you're looking for tonight in this matchup where UConn is maybe not quite as dominant as they've been in years past? That's kind of been one of the last mountains for Coach Flannery's team to climb is getting that UConn win. Probably as good of an opportunity tonight as they've had probably since they've come into the Big East.
I would say so, but it's funny, though, because this is the first year in 2 years that Paige Beckers is back out on the court, but I do feel that Creighton has a really good opportunity to win, and I think that goes to credit of the senior leadership on this team and how many shooters they have, how many options this Creighton squad has, and I would say they're playing with a lot of confidence right now. And I talked to Emma Ronsick last night, and she was telling me about how she's excited to see Paige Beckers on the court and knows that it makes it for a tougher matchup. But she's like, I think we're a better team compared to those past 2 years, to where I think they should be a little worried too about us being a tougher team to play. You go back to the matchup last year in February in Stores, it was 72-70, just a 2-point loss between a really great UConn team and a Creighton team that was finding its way in the top 25. And now you get a number 12 UConn team, which is a little bit below, if you want to say, their standards.
Sure.
And then there's a Creighton team at 21, kind of right where they probably expected to be. So I think it's a huge opportunity at home. The place will be rocking. There's more UConn fans in Omaha than you would imagine on this night. Lots of little girls lining up to meet Paige Beckers, and that's one of my favorite things to see every year because it just shows how much the game grows every year. But it's going to be a good one, and I'm hoping for a Creighton win because they've lost 7 times in program history. They've never beat UConn, and I think it would be a really good night to beat them.
Paige Beckers is good for women's basketball.
Yeah, just like Caitlin Clark is.
Caitlin Clark
I mean, last night, holy crap.
So that's why it's great to see a player like her in the lineup versus traveling with the team or on the bench, or maybe, she's going through rehab. Having her just in town isn't just big for the game itself or, the players in terms of competition, but it's great for the city here in Omaha because you will get people that are Creighton fans traveling to go see Paige Beckers play just because they're playing or she's playing their team.
And just a regular basketball fan off the street. And so they come watch UConn play and they're like, whoa, this Creighton women's team is actually really good as well. I'm going to invest and buy more tickets or buy some gear. It's just good for the whole sport.
Well, make sure you keep an eye out on Creighton's social media, see if they release any standing room only tonight. They are currently sold out, so you might have to just try and watch through the windows there at DJ Sokol Arena. No, we'll see if they'll release some standing room only tickets tonight as well. They, like Anna said, they usually do for these big matchups like they've got tonight against UConn. Andrew,
let's play trivia. Ravi, get out of here.
It's trivia time. Peace out.
Take your phone. We got to text you. Anna, are you scared?
I'm kind of scared. I didn't know he had to leave the room.
He has to leave because he gets the same questions.
Oh, okay.
But he doesn't get the answer choices.
Good.
Although he gets one Hail Mary. So if
okay.
Out of the 3, if he's like, I need help, I'll give him the 3 answer choices.
Okay.
But you get them every time. All right, Anna, you ready to go?
I think so.
All right.
Hopefully you were nice to me today.
Question number 1. Sports trivia for all you out there if you'd like to play at home. Besides the Pistons, the Detroit Pistons, who also holds the record for most consecutive losses in an NBA season? Is it the Cavs, the Sixers, or the Rockets?
I'm going to go Sixers.
Question number 2. What are the only 2 schools that have produced a number 1 overall pick in the NFL, MLB, and NBA drafts? Is it LSU and Texas, LSU and UCLA, or UCLA and Texas?
LSU, UCLA.
Question number 3. Of all the teams that have won a football national championship since 1936, 3 of them do not currently play in a Power 5 conference. Notre Dame, Army, and which other newly added Big 12 team? Is it Cincinnati, UCF, or BYU?
Wait, that never have won?
That have won.
That have
so,
won?
So the question is, if you played in a Power 5 conference, you won a national championship, 3 of them in history didn't. Now, the one team that I'm looking for is a newly added Big 12 team.
That's 1-1?
Yes. So is it Cincinnati, UCF, or BYU?
Oh, my gosh. I don't think Cincinnati. I don't think any of them.
Ask for the Hail Mary.
I can't get the Hail Mary. This is the Hail Mary. I'm going to go BYU.
And your tiebreaker question, how many games did the Pistons lose last season? So this is just closest to.
Just overall record?
No, just their losses. I'm looking for only their losses.
Yeah. I'm going to go 41.
41. Thank you, Anna. How do you feel you did?
I definitely got 2 at least wrong.
Right. Ravi,
I'm not feeling good, but whatever.
Ravi, as you make your way back up to the stage, I just asked Anna how she felt she did. She said, I feel like I've got at least 2 wrong. and end quote. So these ones were tricky today.
They were kind of hard.
But I think
they were in NBA.
Okay, so
I don't pay attention to
2 wrong out of what? 3 questions?
Out of 3 questions.
That's not great,
So
Anna.
I'm not feeling confident.
And you know what? Ravi kind of has an advantage on the first question because he's a huge NBA nut.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
That was not fair.
A lot of pressure here.
If you did only NFL.
Hey, like I told you though, and I'll read the question first. Besides the Pistons, who also holds the record for most consecutive losses in an NBA season?
I'm going to go 76ers.
So before I give that answer, context, I told Anna yesterday, I'm a timely guy with my trivia question. So the Pistons are a timely story.
Yeah.
And then, as the questions go on, Ravi will hear more. Question number 2. What are the only – that didn't make sense. What are the 2 schools? I said this is ridiculous. I'm taking out the word only. When I read that the first time, it didn't sound right either. What are the 2 schools that have produced a number 1 overall pick in the NFL, MLB, and NBA drafts?
Okay. LSU is one of them. Because you've got, LSU is one of them. NFL, MLB, NBA.
NFL, MLB, NBA.
Ooh, I don't think Kansas has done baseball. has USC done basketball? They've had a couple number 2 picks. Shoot. Can I get my options on this one?
Yes, you may. Hail Mary for Ravi. Is it LSU and Texas, LSU and UCLA, or UCLA and Texas?
Okay, so LSU is definitely one of them. So it's either Texas or UCLA. Were those the ones matched up?
Yep.
Okay, so UCLA has had, I don't know that UCLA's had, Troy Aikman is football. You've got basketball with, I assume, Kareem. Does Texas have, I don't think Texas has a number 1 overall pick in basketball. So I'm going to go LSU, UCLA.
And question number 3, of all the teams that have won a football national championship since 1936.
Okay, what is that, the AP poll era?
That is correct.
Okay.
3 of them do not. 3 of them do not currently play in a Power 5 conference.
Ooh, okay.
Notre Dame.
Yep.
Army.
Yep.
And which other newly added Big 12 school?
BYU.
And the tiebreaker question, how many games did the Pistons lose last season?
I don't know. They were bad. I'm going to say 57.
Thank you, Ravi. All right, let's go through the answers.
So we had like the same answers.
Way to spoil it, Anna.
Well, the viewers know.
All right, let's go through them. Well,
right.
Ravi didn't.
I didn't know. I'm just sitting here.
Maybe
All
I
right,
am
besides
smart.
the Pistons, who holds the record for most consecutive losses in an NBA season? Is it the Cavs, the Sixers, or the Rockets? You both said the Sixers. You both are correct.
Nice.
Wow.
Well done, Anna.
What are the 2 schools that have produced a number 1 overall pick in the NFL, MLB, and NBA drafts? You both said LSU and UCLA. You both are
Oh my
correct.
gosh.
Nailed it.
Of all the teams that have won a football national championship since 1936, 3 of them do not play in a Power 5 conference. Notre Dame, Army, and which other newly added Big 12 school? You both said BYU. You both are correct.
Nice.
Wow.
So the
Ding.
tiebreaker question, how many games did the Pistons lose last season? Anna, you said 41. Ravi, you said 57. The answer is 59.
Oh,
Dang it.
I was close.
I knew I should
You
have gone
were.
higher. I
You
knew I
were.
should
That
have
was
gone
a
higher.
that was a good one though.
Anna, well
Anna.
done. 3 for
Thank you.
3. I'm impressed.
Thank
I'm
you.
impressed.
I'm impressed with myself. Wow. I was really unsure.
That's the show for today. Anna, much better at trivia than Shane. We'll see you tomorrow on Hurrdat Sports Radio.